Jump right into it. Good evening, everybody. I am the magical Mr. Mephisto, the most dangerous man in Age of Sigmar. Really awesome guest tonight. I've got Emmet Byrne with me, producer, RPG designer of Soulbound, which has essentially consumed the rest of my time that isn't RantCast. So, how's it going, man?
That's what I like to hear. Yeah, good, good. Slightly later for me here, obviously. I'm hitting 10 o'clock. I know you still have the sun. I'm in a
Yeah,
darkened room
yeah.
here in Ireland.
Yeah, so
Just in the shadows. All good here.
all good. So that's actually like kind of one of the cooler things we were talking a little bit before the show is that you've got like a editor in like Kentucky. I know you had a lot of playtesters and some other like contributors were Australia. Like you have a very international crew. And I guess before I ask you what I want to ask you about that, your title. What is your title?
Producer.
Producer. So
Yeah.
what does that
Which
entail?
means
Yeah.
like different things to everyone,
Right.
basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, as a writer, I've got a few like self-published books. Been working on a novel forever.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
All doing writer stuff, right? Like that's what I do. Producer to me isn't a label I encounter much unless I jump over into like script writing side of things. So, what
Yeah, yeah.
what's an RPG producer role like? What are you like editor in chief? Is it publisher? What's going? What is
It's
that?
it's got a couple of different lines. Like if you check the credits on a couple of different books, you'll see a different title, I would say. Like so producer is generally to it's basically project manager, but it sounds nicer than
Right.
project manager. Like if you go into TV and you go into animations, things like that, producer means something different. But generally you're facilitating other things.
Mm-hmm.
Um on say like for Soulbound or for RPGs, like the producers in Cubicle 7 are kind of like the line manager or line developer as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you oversee the line as a whole, you plan out everything for the line, like what books are going to come and all that kind of stuff. And then okay, well, we need 80,000 words for this. Okay, we better get some writers for that. We need X art, we need this kind of stuff. Like so today I was actually going through Champions of Order, which is one of our new books that we're going to be doing that should be coming out in Q3, Q4. I'm trying to remember what I announced. Um, so I did like what's called a storyboard, which is basically a PowerPoint.
Mm-hmm.
But like, so say the book is going to be 160 pages, 120 pages, whatever it is. It's PowerPoint of basically all the slides. Here's all the pages. Here's the text, like placeholder text, lorem ipsum in there. And that piece of art will go here. A piece of art will go here. A table will go here, and just do that. And then that's your basic structure for the book.
So
Um,
you actually outline the structure, like is part within your role a little bit. Like you say, like this is how long it's supposed to be, and then you go, this is what I want it to kind of look like down the line.
Yeah, yeah. So, like, say, it depends on what books you're working on. So, the Champions of Order book is it's a player-facing book, so it has player options and stuff. So that's like, okay, we wanted to kind of sit alongside the core book, so we know we want the structure to be kind of similar. It's like, okay, well, here's your archetype. Archetype image goes on the left, stat block goes on the right. 300 words text go on the top.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then if you're doing, say, an adventure, so I wouldn't have done an outline for the adventures that we have in the work. I know the book we announced, Shadows in the Mist. So there's 6 adventures in that. What I basically said was, okay, here's how I want the adventures to be structured. I just want, okay, a couple of hundred words on the adventure summary, a couple of hundred words on running the adventure, how to run it, and then 16,000 words that is the adventure. And then you structure it as you want within
Right.
that, basically.
Right.
Like,
Well, with an adventure, you kind of want that writer's agency in there. I think like to really, but so you're kind of like equal parts like what would be like a film director in that you've kind of got the vision and things are kind of conforming to like where you want it to go, but then you're also on that like sort of producer side of things where you're making decisions too in terms of like the project on like a bigger scale than what just we see on the page.
yeah, director is actually probably a good analog
Good,
to some
good,
extent
good
without
analog.
blowing smoke. But yeah, it's kind of like, okay, we want it to look like this. I know what a soulbound adventure, soulbound book should feel like. So you try and give as much guidance to writers coming on that. And then then it's actually like literally people send in writing. I review the writing and I do a producer pass. Goes back to the writer. Comes to me once I'm happy. It goes to editing and editing do their thing. Same with the art. So I not all producers or line managers or whatever you want to call it would do it, but I will spec out the art for a book, and I'll communicate with the artists, get them to do the art, and then I have the back and forth with the artists. It goes off for approval with Games Workshop, comes back to me, I give any feedback to the artist, and then it's signed off. So,
right.
The producers in C7 have a lot to do. We review all the art, we review all the writing, and we facilitate all the communication within that as well.
And you're allowed to lie. So you're basically the top dog on Soulbound, though. Like, of bringing that.
Yeah, pretty much, say Dom is our CEO, right? So as the company grew, and one of the things with, for those who don't know, like 2 years ago now, Cubicle 7 moved from the UK to move to Ireland. And a part of that was Brexit, honestly, because shipping and
getting
the
ready.
whole uncertainty around that.
Yep, just getting ready. Yep.
But also, like, the company had been working primarily remotely since then. So moving to Ireland, it was like, okay, we can get an office, we can get more people in-house, we can work as more of an in-house team. Now, obviously, the last 3 months, that's kind of gone out the window. But that was kind of the goal there. But a part of that was, the teams blew up. So we had, I'm in charge of Soulbound, and Zach is our Wrath and Glory producer, and Podrick's our Warhammer producer, and then Dom is our CEO, and Dom's kind of oversees everything, and he touches on everything, but he's at a level now where he can't manage the minutiae. So it's kind of like, basically, we're middle management. We're like, right. We like, I'll look over the line, and we all work together. But it is, as far as Soulbound goes, yeah, along with chatting to Dom, me and Dom would make the decisions, or I'll just go to Dom like, hey, these are my plans for the books. And Dom will go, maybe we can do this, maybe we can do this, maybe we can do this. And I go, okay, great. And then once we're happy with it, we do that. And it's the same with Warhammer Fantasy and with Wrath and Glory and stuff as well. So
right, and just real quick for the audience, like what titles all fall under the Cubicle 7 banner? Which RPGs, if they're going to go into a store, or realistically they're going to look online, what RPGs are they going to see under the Cubicle 7 banner?
Yeah, so basically we have Warhammer Fantasy 4th Edition. We have Warhammer Age of Sigmar Soulbound. We have Warhammer 40k Wrath and Glory. Sorry?
The best one, by the way.
Yeah.
And then Wrath and Glory. And so...
And then...
Oh, go ahead.
And now Wrath and Glory was developed by Ulysses, who are another studio, but we did a bit of a handover there, and now we are managing the line. Right. And then we have our own stuff that we're building from that, but we have, the 40k license. You might see like Adventures in Middle Earth, which is the 5th edition D&D Lord of the Rings, which is still out there, and we're doing like a sell-off now because we cancelled the license. So there's a lot. You can still get a few of the books from our store, but most of them are sold out.
So that's in a transitional period. Well. This happens from time to time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then we have a couple of lines that people might have known from years ago, maybe like Victoriana is one, which is just a really awesome setting for anyone who knows Shadowrun. Victoriana is basically like Shadowrun, but in Victorian England, which is just awesome.
That's pretty metal.
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit of hiatus, but we should have news hopefully in the near future on that. There's a couple other ones like The Laundry, which is from a few years ago as well, which is I don't know a huge amount about, but it's quite a cool book and quite a cool concept. But the big ones are the 3 Warhammer books.
Right. I mean, that's a huge... Warhammer's a
huge...
Oh,
Doctor Who. Jesus, sorry, Doctor Who.
Oh man, you'd get the Whovians mad at us. Let's not do that. I already
exactly,
one of the first 6 podcasts I did, I made fun of Doctor Who, and so I'm surprised I'm still on the air.
The Doctor Who system is really, really cool. I think Dave Chapman designed it, but it basically even the initiative system in that is like you kind of have classes, like you can be the Doctor, but then you have like a doer, a runner, a talker, that kind of thing. Like they're your kind of roles.
I like that, yeah.
Well, like the initiative works on basically what the Doctor values most. So the Doctor will value like kind of talking, and then like combat is right down the bottom because you don't want to end it. But
it's the last thing like the Doctor wants to do.
Yeah. It's a really cool system. It's like 2d6, really simple, really nice stuff. It's actually it's a really fun system.
See, I mean that's one thing I got to play 4th Ed. I haven't played Wrath and Glory yet. I actually missed Charlotte's stream, so she does these really cool like teaching streams and stuff. But I did get to play Fantasy with her, 4th edition, and so that was as I recall, it was like a little bit of a deep percentile based, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah. Which I did play Dark Heresy, and that was also deep percentile based. with Soulbound, we're in the like essentially D6 dice pools, um,
Yeah, yeah.
which actually harken a little bit back to like the old Star Wars. I don't remember like D6 Star Wars, which was like
Yeah, yeah,
pretty.
yeah, yeah. We actually looked at we didn't look at the Star Wars the actual system for that. I remember we dug out an old copy and we were kind of looking at the force powers and how they were built in that, and when we were looking at building our own magic system and stuff. Yeah, but so Wolfrup is D100, Wrath and Glory is D6 dice pool,
Okay.
and Soulbound is D6 dice pool.
Interesting.
I had a like shit myself moment, pardon my language.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
You can't get demonetized on Twitch, right?
No, no, and even if I got demonetized on YouTube, Twitch is what pays the bills anyway. So like, who cares?
Awesome. Yes. So, like, I hadn't actually really looked at Wrath and Glory. I think it came out maybe a little bit before I started working with C7, or maybe a little bit after, but I hadn't really looked at it. And then we were about halfway through development on Soulbound of creating the rules and everything, and I looked at Wrath and Glory, and it was D6 dice pool and all this kind of shit, and I was like, oh, fuck! Like, we just made the same game, but no, it's actually. I think it really shows the versatility, and between that and like the West End games and a couple of other things, you can really see the versatility of just using D6s, because the way they do it is much different. Like with Wrath and Glory, it's Jesus, 4, 5, and 6 are always successes no matter what.
Oh, that's no fun.
And a 6 counts as 2 successes.
They have the exploding dice, right? Like they.
Yeah, but like that gives you the opportunity to do like cool criticals, and like for a D6 system, it's quite. There's a lot of crunch to it, which is really, really nice. Whereas obviously with Soulbound, our goal was specifically to try and like it is a crunchy system at times, but it's more so to make it be as welcoming as possible. But Wrath and Glory does a really good job of making it having a layer of complexity to a D6 system, which is really interesting.
Yeah, so see, I've got like one of the only like real feedback I gave during the playtest process was like the lack of a quote unquote critical. And we had like kind of a discussion around that a little bit, and I remember ultimately coming down for like Soulfire kind of being the critical effect, where you want that huge, like that big moment in RPGs, because I do think that's part of the fun, and to have that sort of like. We're going to talk video games later, I promise. But like to have the hold the shoulder buttons to do the big move thing, like burn the V trigger moment. That's what Soulfire is, and so you're kind of getting that like that hit of the critical effect. So I like that was really, but like what you're talking about here is, so when you set out to like make your system, you looked at some other stuff, right? Like you mentioned looking at Star Wars. Did you strike out to be like, I want our system to be different? Or like how do you go in when you're trying to design a system, like mechanics?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that Dom obviously has years of experience in this. So one of the things his come up straight away was like, you are X doing Y, and then kind of everything else feeds off that. You are big damn heroes trying to save the mortal realms,
right?
Like, and kind of everything else builds off that.
That was Dom's directions, like. You want to be big damn heroes in Soulbound. Was that like
pretty much like it is? Yeah, like I started working on it I think it would have been actually just after second edition came out, maybe. Okay. And there was a bit of a shift there, but like as a whole, Age of Sigmar is that mythic, epic level scale, and we had Warhammer Fantasy, which is grimy and dirty and very You're peasants, yeah. So I mean, like there wasn't a huge point in putting out a system that did the same thing.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things you see with Age of Sigmar, the battle game, is you have a lot of new people coming to battle games, and I think it's brought in a new generation of people. 100%,
I think
100%. I think like one of the things, like I love the old world as well because I played second edition, the Green Ronin second edition with Wolfrup as well. One of the things that the End Times did was it gave people a point to step in without the baggage of however many years.
Yeah, you didn't feel like you needed to know everything before to get into the game. Like we as nerds, we basically ask you to show your nerd card, right? Like prove. I don't like that personally. That's a big reason of how I angle a lot of my shows. Like I hate nerd tribalism. But like it's there. It's there. You have that moment. where you're like, oh, show me your nerd card, show me your nerd cred first. Like we do this with comics, with comic. Watch the next comic book movie. When Guardians of the Galaxy
Yeah.
was like the most crystallized moment of this, we're like, oh man, I hope they get the squirrel right. And I'm like, no, you don't. You don't care. I know it's a raccoon. Don't at me, Marvel nerds. Like like no, you don't. You don't care. You're just saying that to gatekeep. Like stop that. But like
Yeah,
you had a
yeah.
little bit of that with Warhammer Fantasy Battle, where you're like, well, even I just recorded a episode with Garage Hammer, Dave Wydick and Alex G, and he was surprised to find that I had played as long as I had because I just don't like do that in the circles where I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
sure, yeah.
like I just don't talk about like, oh yeah, like I just never because I don't think longevity of a fandom equals quality of a fandom. Like just because,
Absolutely not. I think Star Wars has proven
yeah,
that.
yeah. Well, you just like I don't care where you jump on the bandwagon because if you
Yeah.
stay on the bandwagon, guess what? You're not. You're if you stay in the fandom, you're not a bandwagon fan anymore. You're just a fan, and everyone gets started
Yeah, yeah.
somewhere. And so it's
Yeah.
so just to kind of bring this back to your point, I think one of the greatest strengths of Age of Sigmar is it is very much a game like you're saying, where like it kind of doesn't. When you get into this game, you just go, yeah, oh yeah, Stormcast Eternals, big lightning god, and you can make whatever comparisons to like Greek myth you want, and you can get people on board pretty quick without that like having to establish. Even 40K's got this going on right now, where it's like, oh yeah, the Empire and it's like with Age of Sigmar, like yeah, there's tons of lore to be filled in, tons, and they're putting that together, and even your RPG, I think really did a great thing for like world building of what is Age of Sigmar. We'll talk about like probably Brightspear a little bit later, where you said like these are spaces and we're putting in life and we're adding that stuff, but when it gets
Mm.
right down to it, it never does that like nerd litmus test, like how nerdy are you nerdy enough to play our game? And so I really
Yeah,
really love
yeah.
that. I really love that.
I, I think one of like the most pervasive things about Age of Sigmar is that there's no lore to it. I think it's just and it's completely with second edition. I think that's been blown out of the water completely. But I think I think what Soulbound does is takes it managed. What we did was like look at all the awesome stuff Games Workshop had already done in like 10 different battle tomes. We're like, okay, let's try and put this in one place
Right, right.
so people can find it. But like, even at that, we're like, oh, we should mention this. It was like, well, if we mention that, then we have to mention this. We have to mention this. And they're like, okay, well, now we're up to like 450 pages.
Well, like I'm thinking about how like the Age of Myth. It's called the Age of Myth,
Mm.
and that gives you so much agency to inject whatever you want into the world of Age of Sigmar because it's
Yeah.
conflicting accounts of myth and stuff like that, and we know what's going on right now. But like the
Mm.
backstory from an RPG, now I'm thinking in the RPG mind. In the RPG mind, I'd be like, oh yeah, you heard that myth about Archeon doing the thing. It was actually these guys, and like you
Yeah.
can do that because history is fluid in term when you're talking like myth comparing to myths. I love that,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it lends itself really well to that heroic scope, which
Yeah. Yeah.
was like a total home run. I not to gush too much over the game that I play and you designed, but um,
But I mean, one of the things that RPGs, and I found myself falling into this trap as well. And again, this was kind of, you know, I spent a lot of time working on Soulbound, and a huge amount of people spent time working on it. And Dom worked on it as well. But every now and again, Dom would come in and just drop these nuggets, and I'd go, "Fuck," and I'd just be like, "Shit, he's right." But it was like, what was it like encyclopedia or role playing or whatever? I can't remember what he called it, but it was basically like try not to make a book that is just an encyclopedia. Like make sure it's full of adventure hooks and like world building rather than this city has a population of X. This event happened on this day in this year. Like
well, even
I'm sure people are probably annoyed that there's not like a timeline of events in there because I've seen a couple of people mention it, but it is even the current age of Sigmar is still it's hundreds of years old. There isn't as many accounts. People can't be bookkeeping while they're running away from chaos. You
yeah.
know, so there's
Yeah, no, I like actually Age of Sigmar itself tries really hard. I think it tries to not have a timeline like that. That's one of the mistakes that you make essentially with, or should say that the world that was kind of made is they're like this happened and then this happened and then this happened like with certainty and in perpetuity. This is what happened.
yeah.
And so when like demigryphs suddenly show up, people are just like running like there were never Temigriffs in this battle. Oh my gosh! Like they're just
Yeah.
and it's
But like, I mean, I see that with when the guys are working on Warhammer Fantasy, they are referencing so many books from like the battle game, and then from the End Time storyline, and from all the various different RPG editions, from White Dwarfs from however long ago. And like, oh wait, was Karl Franz here at this time? And and you're like trying to keep that aligned, and I'm just like, I do whatever I want.
well, that leads us really nicely to Brightspear, because you did kind of like pay. I got the sense when I even the early content, like, I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about this. You can slap me with a cease and desist directly. But when
Let's
I
see
was
what happens.
when I was in the playtest period, I was just like, it very much felt like this was a game made by people who loved what they were doing, and I got
Oh
that
yeah,
sense through the whole process. So it really felt like you tried to honor the game. Like Age of Sigmar, Warhammer, you tried to honor that while you made this new and different thing. So you really kind of paid those nods, like you said, like, oh, we're like, oh man, we want to tell them about this awesome thing that happened in Age of Sigmar. We're going to tell them about this awesome thing. Like one that stands out is the Necroquake. That's on like one of like the third page in the book. You talk about the Necroquake because like this is this huge...
Well, like, it has to be in there, right?
right, and you're like, oh no, like you got to tell people about the Necroquake, and you take these perspectives of the different characters and stuff. It's really cool. But then, like, you're like, okay, but now we're gonna make the thing for us, and you throw in this notion of Brightspear. So I'm really curious, how did Brightspear come to be? Like what the hey, we're gonna make our city for our game. I'd imagine you have to go to GW. I don't know what it's like to work with them, but they really seem to like kind of have their vision, and then you have to kind of go, hey, is it okay, right? Like, just what's the process of getting that Brightspear in there? Like, why was it so pivotal that you kind of add that spin on this game that you've really been honoring?
Sure, yeah. I mean, like, look, I'm gonna sound like a shill when whatever I say, basically. But like, working with Games Workshop has been great. Like, Phil Kelly and the writing team have made themselves so available to us. Like, where we're like, hey, what is this? And they're like, oh, that's because, like, if you look at the map of Actually, in our case, or some of the other ones, those places more than likely weren't named arbitrarily. Like, someone in the writing team has an idea of what happened there, even if it's not planned yet.
That's just good writing. Like, that's straight up good writing. That's how you write.
Like, you can't write the name of a place down, like the Disintegrating Shores or whatever, and not have an idea of what it is. Or the Isle of Exiles, just north of Brightspear and Lumnos. Yeah. Basically, we looked at the Actually map, and we're like, okay, you have Hammerhal here, and you have Anvilgard here, and you have Hallowheart here, and Tempest Eye is kind of down here. And then I think Adassa had just been made here. But you basically have all this stuff in the Flamescar Plateau right around the middle. And then we're like, oh, but there's nothing down here, though. Down to the bottom left. Mm-hmm. But then, reading through, and you're like, there's this hints of the Agloraxian Empire, which is like my favorite bit of everything in Warhammer is the Agloraxian Citadel, and they wiped out an entire army of Khorne without shedding a drop of blood. And Khorne was so angry that he manifested a fist and punched them out of the sky. Like, it's so Khorne, but also like really Monty Python or something. Like,
like great, and then the animator died. Like, it's full on. Like, the fist just shows up, and
yeah.
That's fantastic.
But like, the Agloraxian Empire sounded really interesting to us, and there was like a splinter group from them, the Asperian Empire. I'm trying to remember in my head. I think some of them maybe became ghouls at some point of the Agloraxians, or the. But anyway, yeah. And then we're like, okay, Asperia sounds like a really cool place. We have the Disintegrating Shores here. Oh, it's crumbling into the realm of chaos. Like, okay, well. And then we were like, okay, Agloraxian Citadels. Okay, what are they? They feel like Fallout shelters, like in Fallout. And we'd already used Fallout as a bit of a touchstone in the game already. We're like, it is post-apocalyptic.
Yeah.
Like steampunk fantasy horror. Like it's there's so much in there. We're like, okay, well, the Citadels, that seems really cool. All these Citadels are really near to a part of the world that is crumbling into the realm of chaos. We're like, let's put a city there.
Yeah. Let's put the most metal city ever there, where they're just like hanging out, where this like catastrophic, like, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. And then, it's just like, yourself when you're writing. It's like all these things trigger and you go, this makes sense, this makes sense, this makes sense. And we're like, okay, a storm host is always sent in to take over, to liberate a realm gate or liberate a location, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going through the storm host and we're like, okay, these are good, these are good. And then I think I was just reading like Celestial Warbringers. I was like, these are awesome. Oh, they can basically see their own death. I was like, oh, that would really piss Tzeentch off. And we've decided that Tzeentch controls this city. So it just really made sense. And it's those things that just fire,
Oh,
and you
those
get it
threads
from...
that connect on their own, where you're like, it writes itself, right? That's when you know you're on a great
Yeah,
idea as a writer. You're like, it's basically writing itself. I know I'm on a great idea. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And it's kind of us, talking, kicking things around. Myself and TS, who's been in the industry for years. He did a lot of writing. He wrote pretty much the entire Great Parch chapter. He's doing some stuff. He did like Dark Heresy years ago. I think it was Dark Heresy, one of the 40k games. He's written on Wolfrope. He's written on all our lines. He's really, really good. It would just be like 2 hour conversations with me and him just kicking stuff around and coming up with stuff. And then you involve everyone else and we talk about it and everything like that. But yeah, Brightspear has been a lot of fun to create, and the biggest kick I got was, the GW were like, yeah, put a city there, great. And we start coming up with a few ideas, and obviously everything goes over to Games Workshop to be like, hey, is this okay? Is this going to step on any upcoming storylines? Is there anything we need to know here? And they're always, really forthcoming with that stuff. So that had gone over, and then like we got an issue of White Dwarf in the post, and Brightspear was mentioned in it. I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Metal. Isn't that pretty? That's got to be like a really
yeah.
affirming moment, right? Where you're like, we did this thing.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Now it's canon in the mythos of all of Warhammer. Like you did that.
Yeah,
your team did that.
Yeah.
So.
But that's it exactly. And you're talking about people being excited about what they're making, and it's like, how could you not be excited about it? Because one way or another, for good or for ill, the system is going to be remembered because it's the first ever Age of Sigmar role playing game.
Right.
And being handed that opportunity to do that is huge. Like, because like so many people I talk to, where they're like, oh well, Warhammer Fantasy was my first ever RPG, and that got me into RPGs forever. And you have the opportunity to be that for someone, because you'll have people from, and I've seen it online, where you have people who play the Age of Sigmar battle game and like, oh, I picked up Soulbound. I picked it up for the lore, but hey, I might run it. And you have the chance to be that stepping stone into a whole other hobby. Like, not that they're going to leave battling, but it gives them something new. And that's huge as a company to be able to go, okay, here's this huge new thing that we're doing. Could you make a role-playing game for it? You're like, yeah, yes, please.
yeah. Well, like you said that, and like a couple things sprang to mind, which is like, first of all, I've joked that like this is my favorite first edition ever. I can't wait for second edition. like as far as like, you play a lot of RPGs and you go like, this is good, this is blah, but like Rifts is like one of my like it's like my one of my favorite games. I'm not sure if you've played like Rifts or any of the Palladium books. A small company out of Detroit.
I actually haven't played Rift. I've heard Rifts mentioned so much.
Because they're post-apocalypse, but their mechanics are the opposite of your mechanics. They're everywhere. There's no like centralized thing going on. There's no ladder. They have D percentile for skills and D20s rolling for hits and D6s through D12s for damage. Like this game is a nightmare mechanically, but setting-wise, it's so great, and the kind of the chaos of the system, you're like, yeah, that makes sense for the post-apocalypse weird game where like essentially nukes triggered basically the backdrop is America, like, or not America, the world had like a golden age of peace in like the year 3000. Golden age, lifespans were up to 200 because our medical science is amazing, and then for whatever reason a Cold War starts. They all start making like secret technology and use it on each other, and the planet says, F this, and all of magic comes back in waves, tears apart reality, demons and dragons and any fantasy thing you've ever heard of comes pouring through the gates, and now you're in Rift's Earth. Rifts being like the tears in fabric in real time.
Yeah.
So it's just this
that's fucking metal.
It's awesome. Yeah, see, is it a metal? Like, but like that's one of those games where like I played that game. And so like every game I will ever play from now on I'll always think back to Rifts. And you
Yeah,
just did that for an entire generation. And more than that, because like I got into RPGs, getting into RPGs, the thing, and I agree with you, one of the most magical things I've seen going on is I've seen wargamers go, I've never played an RPG before, I'm going to go play an RPG now. So you have this like sort of
mm,
double like, I don't say burden, but double opportunity where you have two things going on. You're the first Age of Sigmar RPG, but you're also going to be this entry point for so many people who have never touched this hobby, this part of gaming before. And
yeah, yeah.
I think you guys like crushed it. I keep referring to this as a bridge game. That's how I try to tell people. I'm like, if you've played either Age of Sigmar or like Dungeons and Dragons, you're gonna be able to go, I can play this game. Was that a
Yeah, yeah.
was that a goal going into it, or did you know the weight of being the first team to tackle this?
Um,
I
I
mean,
mean, the goal was absolutely to make this welcoming to new players and to people, to brand new role playing, possible role players, and to like people coming over from Age of Sigmar. But also, you want something there for people who are the diehard role playing game as well.
oh yeah,
Now, I had a feeling when, as we were working on it, this at first blush, the diehard role players who had been playing for 20, 30 years would see the system and go, oh, too easy, fuck that, and walk out. So that's why we had the create your own character right at the start. We're like,
yeah,
okay, you can do this, you don't have to pick an archetype. But yeah, like the goal throughout, and one thing we always came back to when we hit a critical point or a decision point was, does this make it welcoming for new players? And does it make it easy to get into? The only thing I would say that maybe we ended up compromising a little on would be the ladder. But that was with the idea that it would facilitate ease of play later.
mm,
So, like I was never quite happy with. I suppose I was always worried with how the ladder would be interpreted by people and how it would present to people, because you add up these numbers, then you divide them by two, then you get a rating, then you compare the rating to another rating. Like, it sounds clunky and it sounds complicated.
it's
Thankfully, you
it's not as complicated in play as you think
exactly, yeah,
initially.
yeah,
It seems hyper crunchy. It really does, but then you realize number gives you result gets compared, and that's really the gist of it. But yeah, continue. Sorry,
yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't want to cut you.
No,
Like
no, 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 no. That,
um,
but it's yeah. That was one of the things I'm like, this is probably the most unwelcoming thing to new players.
yeah,
But then, like, to get the system to work, we kind of had to keep it. Nobody had to keep. Like, I'm happy with it. And I'm happy with how it works. But it is probably one of the friction that a new player will encounter. I think.
well,
I think particularly maybe people coming over from something like D&D, where it's just like, beat this number. Not, and I think I actually found it hard as a GM to be like, oh, roll to hit, and they're like, well, what's its defense? I'm like, oh yeah, I have to tell you. Like, rather than if I was running D&C, I keep AC
well,
secret.
like so I wanted to do the thing where this is something I found in my experience is running it now, not so much as on the player side. You're like you're just always asking the GM for information, so it's not like it's not a leap for a player. But from a GM perspective, it's like, oh, I have to give you a target number now. And I'm like,
Yeah,
usually I lie to you about the AC for like the first like 3 rounds, and then I tell you, like, like
yeah,
like I can't do that anymore. So like having so I've established a house rule in my games is like the DN's always four unless I say otherwise, using a little bit of the
oh yeah,
rules that are already in the game, which is like the what is it, like opposed test, basically say it's fours and compare successes. Like, so I'm like, I'm just
sure,
going to
yeah,
take that, and that's going to be a blanket rule I do going forward. It's fours unless I tell you otherwise. And it's taken us 3 adventures, and the likes of Vince, Tom, Joe / Haywo, and Chuck Moore, like paragons of our community, are still asking me the target number. I'm like, come on. But
yeah,
I don't think it's that bad, and and any D&D nerd who's complaining about it, you just pull their THACO card. So we talked about nerd cred cards. Just be like, I
yeah,
played
yeah,
with THACO. This is nothing. Like, whatever, nerd.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was either you or Vince on one of the streams compared to Thaco, and I was like, that was like a dagger in my heart, but also, yeah, Thaco. This is
Well,
like the...
so this is where we get into like flaws as features, or I don't even want to call it flaws as features, but like I call them the sharp
It's a
edges.
feature, not a bug. Yeah.
Yeah. I call them sharp edges in design or stories or art. Like for instance, like the imperfections, like a guitarist who's got like a certain like distortion, or like they always like to just do that little thing. You remember that guitarist for those imperfections and those like weird things that they did, because a robot can perfectly synthesize a perfectly played melody on guitar now. So
Yeah. Like you shouldn't run your finger along the string, but it
right.
sounds cool. So.
Yeah, right, exactly. But it sounds cool, and so this is one of those like those sharp edges. They're the things that make it memorable, and not a robot making a thing. Because a robot would have just been like,
Yeah.
yeah. So like I'm fine with it. Like I really am. The Thaco dagger though, where you're just like, no, the thing that's the most maligned thing in RPGs. Did I just do that? And so I love this take.
Well,
from...
I mean,
go ahead.
no, you go. Yeah, you're all good.
No, I love this from Euronymous Max. You'll be having very angry nerds arguing over it in 20 years. You gotta take some pleasure in knowing in 20 years when we're in like third or fourth ed of Soulbound, I hope you're working our RPGs then. Some person is gonna talk about this inception of the ladder. And
Yeah.
that's gotta bring you a pleasure. I don't know.
Like if people are talking about us in 20 years, I'll be fucking delighted. I will be a very happy man, you know. Well, yeah, I mean, like the reception has been absolutely fantastic to it. To pull my my nerd cred card.
There you go. Yeah, show it. Yeah.
My first experience with Thaco was with Baldur's Gate, the PC game.
Yeah, right on.
Years ago, right? And I live in a small town in Ireland. Like I think at the time maybe there was 20,000 people living here. No nerd shops, nothing like that. There was like one up in Dublin, but it was like a 40-minute train to get there, so you couldn't go. So my first encounter with role-playing games was basically like taking the rule book that came with Baldur's Gate, which was like 60 to 100 pages or something like that, and basically had the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons rules in it.
Right.
So basically take that, and I wrote out like backwards engineered the rules for AD&D so that we could actually like stop playing the video game and just play fucking AD&D at the table.
So I'm cheating because I know a little bit about your background, because you went into like actually on the video game side of things, but like it feels to me like perfect poetry that you ended up designing. Like, so you reverse engineered a video game to have an RPG system, and then you go from essentially an RPG field into designing an or essentially from a video game field into designing an RPG. That's fantastic. Like that's what we call in writing bracketing, by the way, when you have a
yes.
That's perfect. No, I love that. Baldur's Gate and Planescape Torment. But I've drawn a lot of inspiration from Planescape with how I've been designing my campaign.
Yeah, sure.
There's a planar element to the Mortal Realms, to Age of Sigmar. Two questions, two-parter here. How did you focus on Akshi as like this is the one? And and then you're like, it's got to be Akshi, right? Like at some point you had to be kicking around ideas, so you went, it's got to be Akshi, and then like, what about the Planescape element? You know about Realm Gaze?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that came up a few times because, you know, one of the big draws for Age of Sigmar is you have 8 infinite realms. You can do all these things in these different realms. But for an RPG to go, okay, well, there's 8 infinite realms, put that in 300 pages, is kind of daunting.
It's impractical. It's basically impractical.
Yeah.
You're not going to get any degree of meat on that bone. Because you're just going to do all structure, you're going to have to go super basic and all the 8 realms and populate it with all your own information, and you're going to have to be the most surface level take to get it into a 300-page book.
But even at that, you know, we're like, okay, let's do Akshi, because a lot of the key moments in history for Age of Sigmar happen in Aqshy.
Okay.
And it's also one of the most fleshed out realms, but there's still a ton of room there. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like initially we're like, oh, let's set it in Hammerhal. And we're like, let's not set it in Hammerhal. Hammerhal has its own thing and its own story. Some of the other cities are super interesting. We're like, okay, well, let's make a new city and see what. A part of creating Brightspear as well was to show new players how one of the cities of Sigmar is built and constructed.
Mm.
So when you go to Brightspear, you see it's in the process of being constructed. Because basically what happened was the city was freed from Tzeentch. So Tzeentch had overrun the city for hundreds of years. Basically took it over during the Age of Chaos and held it ever since. For
Right.
some reason, Sigmar never went there. And then Sigmar decides, I want that city. Go and take it for me. And Celestial Warbringers rock in and push Tzeentch out. They start setting up the city. You know, you have a city that's already there. As far as you know, there's no realm gate there. But there's a city that's been there. It's not with the Azurite architecture. And they're like, okay, well, let's build our Grand Conclave. Let's roll in the cog forts and start building our walls and bringing it out in rings. And just as they start to build it up, the Necroquake happens. So
Mm.
basically everyone gets wiped out again and they have to start rebuilding again. But you know, when you come in the starter set, you get to see the progress they've made, but also what's going on. So you know, you see flagellants going around, whipping themselves and purifying the land. You see bright mages going around and burning out the chaos taint, and you see the cogfort rolling through and building up the walls, and you actually get to see how one of the cities of Sigmar is built. So that was again some of the idea with Brightspear, but you know, the Great Parch gave us something to latch onto at the start and then build out of. You had that with some of the other realms as well. You know, if you go to the second edition core book, each of the realms gets a page or two, maybe four, and you get a good grounding of what they're like. But the Great Parch had a bit more, and it meant we weren't looking at a blank page, and you know how terrifying that is. Like a blank page is the worst thing you can look at. So if you have these things like, oh, the Agloraxian Empire, oh, the Asperians, oh, the Disintegrating Shores, you can start building stuff from that, and it gave us the opportunity to do that by setting it in the Great Parch. Now, even at that, if you know, we have 2 pages on each of the realms in the book, which barely scratches the surface. We've like 30 or 40 pages on the Great Parch, and even at that, still only scratches the surface. It gives you a lot of places that you
Thanks,
can go
TS.
and push it.
Really?
Yeah.
Um,
But then you know, like the starter set has 64-page book on Brightspear as a city. The Shadows in the Mist is going to have a 30-40 page section on Anvilgard. So you know, it's how far you want to drill down in that minutia. So you have like you could do thousands and thousands of
Thank you
pages and
for
stuff.
releasing it after I will have already moved my party out of Anvilgard, by the way. So I've had to really be
You're
painting it in
welcome.
broad strokes, so like they'll already not be in and they'll have to
You can
retcon
come back.
everything. Yeah, they'll go
Yeah.
back. Well, no, and like that's the thing is like they're gonna go back and revisit, you know, things that they have changed, and then I'll have like better and detailed notes to. And it'll like I'll just like it'll be fun. It'll be great. I love the
Yeah.
improvisational aspect of RPGs. And that's kind of like I think that's what the possibilities of this like sort of Planescape-esque this Planescape-esque
Yeah.
setting gives a GM is like there's so much you can fill in, but I gotta give you threads, some details to
Yeah.
like latch onto. When you read about the flagellants like going through the streets, that could give you an idea for an adventure in and of itself, right?
Yeah.
And so like that
Yeah, absolutely.
you've done a great job of populating with like details, but this is one of the things I love the most about Soulbound is because I really am one of those GMs who's like I've GM'd for so long, I will just throw away anything I don't like, just like
Yeah.
immediately jettison it from my campaign or whatever. But I found an inexperienced GM on the other side, they really do need those details to even begin to tell a story, right?
Yeah.
And so
Absolutely. Yeah.
there's a I just this is one of I think one of the greatest successes of Soulbound is that I think there's a balance there between the GM who's just going to change it if they want to. Shout out to Monica on the bonus XP podcast because that's like their tagline basically. But like you can change it if you want to, or you can like read the details in these 32 pages that TS wrote. You can read those and then really focus in on something. You can run that
Yeah,
like
yeah.
political intrigue Brightspear story, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yep,
Like if you want to
absolutely.
focus in, you've got that, and you could just be like, this campaign's going to be 1 year long, and you're never going to leave Brightspear. It's just going to be like
Yeah.
Tzeentchian plots versus, and you're posturing around, and you're going to find about some like hidden undercity, and just the brain explodes with possibilities.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like one of the things that I think I mentioned this on Charlotte's stream, but one of the things that always put me off role playing in the Forgotten Realms was getting something wrong. You know,
Mm.
because we
Well, I read
in our
Driss
group, like,
book. I read Driss book, and it says this thing, right? Like,
yeah, yeah, exactly, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, like, and if you've ever played a Lord of the Rings game, holy shit! Like, one of the most terrifying things I've ever done was run Adventures in Middle Earth for a load of Lord of the Rings fans.
yeah.
Fucking terrifying. Because like my talking knowledge is okay, like, but it's not. I haven't read the Silmarillion like
Yeah,
20 times.
I've read
You
the
know?
Silmarillion once in like the 8th grade. That's as much as I know. Enough to name a character Morque, because they gave you a dictionary at the back of the Silmarillion on the Elven language, right?
Yeah,
That's as
yeah,
much. And I think Morque is like Dead City is what Morque was. But yeah. But like any of these people who just like study it and link all the plot lines together, I'm like, I am going to disappoint you if you are
yeah,
here
exactly.
for
Yeah,
the
yeah.
for the most rich Tolkien-esque plot. I find this a little bit like with Vampire the Masquerade as well, like some of the White Wolf RPGs where you're
Sure,
just
yeah.
there's so much about their meta plot and adherence to the meta plot and adherence. It's got to be the meta plot, the meta plot, the meta plot. I heard someone complaining about one of their splat books, and they're like, "It didn't tell me what to do," and I'm like, "Good, like, good, figure it out." Like I don't know.
Mm.
Um,
But I think that's a lot of people. You know, it's maybe the first interaction with something like that, and it's a step towards that kind of freer system. Like I think Soulbound has actually pulled in a lot of D&D players, which is amazing
right.
because there's tons of D&D players, so you know, more of them the better.
Yeah.
And I
Thank
played
you,
D&D.
Stranger
I've
Things.
yeah, yeah, I've played D&D for 20 years or whatever. But one of the things I found with some players that come from D&D or come from other more rigid systems is the abstraction and the kind of loose nature of some of the stuff in Soulbound. They just bounce off. They're just they don't know how to handle it, and they ask questions about, you know, how long do I need to sleep, or how much food do I need to eat a day, and things like that. Whereas it's more, you know, it's kind of up
So
to the GM, and it's kind of
granular.
hand wavy, you know, like,
Yeah.
yeah, like, oh, that was it. I saw a post on one of the Facebook groups, and it was how much weight can my character carry? But then someone else basically replied to it and were basically like, you know, your character is Captain America or Iron Man. They don't need to worry about their carrying capacity. Like they're heroes, you know.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
which
Well,
is
yeah, Vince mentioned like that was one of his like I think we did our shows like Vince and me like kind of talking about like our first impressions right after the book came out. And one of the words we kept going back to was abstractions. Like
mm,
Soulbound for as like as I feel like galvanized as like some of the crunch is in the ladder and like some of the numbers and of like the character building and that sort of thing. A lot of the structure around it is very so you're like you have a solid core, but then it's a bunch of
mm.
abstractions around that on the outside, and that's a very delicate balance. Did you go in going like we don't care about your carrying capacity, we don't care about like so much travel.
Ammunition.
Yeah, ammunition.
Yeah,
Ammunition's a great one, by the way. Like, so thank you for that, by the way. Thank you so
yeah.
much for that. Like, I
Some people
have
love counting arrows. That's Wolfrop. You know, that's
I haven't I haven't counted ammunition probably for 20 years.
yeah, yeah.
like
I think is it Mutineer Zero by Free League, and they do a thing where they don't have ammunition, but it's like after you fight, you roll the dice, and if you get something, you lose ammunition. Like, so you could fire off 500 shots, but then if you roll a dice after the fight, you lose some of your ammunition, which is kind of a cool way of handling it. It's
I've seen resources.
It's not quite.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
It's not quite managing your inventory, but in something like a post-apocalyptic game, which is what Mutant Year Zero is, that's important to the story. In something like Soulbound, having certain amount of arrows is not important. You
No,
know?
no, not on the Iron Man teams up with Captain America like to go fight Thanos story. Like it's not that important. Um, I appreciate that. I dig that. I see this line here from Delayed Elaine in chat. That came up in our stream.
Shout out to Elaine. Woo!
Yeah, so Elaine, I sense has worked on Soulbound some. Uh,
Elaine is Elaine Lithgow, who wrote the entire bestiary, basically, and also some stuff that was cut from the bestiary, including some awesome quotes. But Elaine wrote Crash and Burn, our new free adventure, and she's writing on Shadows in the Mist and tons of other stuff for us.
I'm gonna be running. So I wasn't supposed to run an entire persistent campaign. By the way, this is like chat gang information for you, chat gang, because it probably means nothing to Emmet. I wasn't supposed to.
Once I start driving to work again and I can listen to podcasts, I will be all over the streams.
Oh, the Soulbound! I hope you're watching the best damn Soulbound show ever, or you're listening to it. No, I was just gonna like showcase. I wanted to like have a bunch of like content creators come together and just like showcase and play the game, and it was gonna be like kind of a once-off. And they're like, yeah, but like, but then me, the writer brain goes, okay, so like, how much do I need to map this out for? Like, I have to have a structure. I need to know how long I'm gonna run this. And they're like, oh, dude, if you just gotta keep running this, I would love to get together every Friday and just play with you. And I'm like, I have to write a real campaign. Okay. But my intent was to do like one shots with like some of the chat gang here and like keep going. So Elaine, I'm actually, your adventure has now stepped in, and I'm going to be running people through that like kind of on a monthly basis for a little bit here to make up for the fact that I was supposed to only do Soulbound, like a Soulbound showcase, and then like kind of keep coming back to it. Now I've got like a second weekly show, which I did not intend. But like that's I think a testament to how great this game is like it's very, it's got like an addictive quality. I can't stop thinking about the next adventure, the next plot point. I can't stop thinking about like I can't wait for them to do Shyish eventually. Like I can't. Where I'm just, you know, like we're
Me
like.
too, man.
No, you don't need to fast track Shyish. It'll get here if it ever gets here. But like, you know, like you've got to actually.
Shyish would have been in the core book if I had my way.
Death is best.
Yeah.
No, it's really well. I mean, the Necroquake is a big focal point. I think it is spoiler. The plot point in my campaign is that the main big bad evil guy drew inspiration from the Necroquake, and it hasn't been determined what inspiration the big bad evil guy drew. And we're kind of working our way. We're kind of Tarantinoing our way through that right now, jumping around, right?
Nice.
But yeah, I just this game. I just wanted to say thank you, Elaine, and then I got on a tangent within a tangent. So thank you so much. No spoils. People are still watching this. Vince has taken our joy. Yeah, Vince playing Skig. Well, that actually is a good point.
You'll get your damn horse, Vince. Son of a bitch.
I love that this is that sharp edge moment for me. Is we think about the enjoyment all of us, me and Vince specifically, but everybody else has had with the horse joke, just constantly like.
There's a realm of metal, so swords are cheap. There's not a realm of horses. I know there's a realm of beasts. Shut up.
No, I don't know. Like, I don't want to get. I'm not interested in like the granularity of like horses in the fireplace where there are deserts, but also tons of lush jungles. By the way, so you know.
Yeah,
like,
Kotha is fucking like snow.
Yeah, yeah.
What's that? There's the awesome cannibal horses. What are they called?
Yeah, cannibal horses. Yes.
They're
sold.
I think they're in Actually, hang on. I almost put them in. Maybe I mentioned them. Cannibal horses, Age of Sigmar. My search history is just...
How did anyone write anything? Oh, any writer's search history, by the way, is just...
Cannibal horses of Caldera. There you go. The cannibal horses of the Caldera. Yep.
like how did we write anything before the internet? Like
I have no idea.
but like
Books, I guess.
the browser history is like I actually had like a knot. The most recently I had to look up like knot tying and stuff, and it sent me down the weirdest browser history I've ever had because like you tie in like various nooses and like
Yeah,
ship
yeah.
knot. I'm like, if anyone reads this, they think I'm a psychopath. Like they
Well, like, I mean,
just
I tweeted about this the other day, right? And when I want to get to any of my spreadsheets or anything, I just type it into the search bar because I use Chrome and it remembers everything, right?
right.
So my starter set art tracker is titled AOS underscore SS underscore art tracker. So I type SS art and I actually pressed enter and it came up with SS artifacts, like artifacts of the SS. I was like, oh
Oh
fuck. Now I'm
no.
on some list somewhere.
Yep.
But I saw Jacob, who's writing our starter set. He tweeted the other day that he was looking up the density of human flesh for adventure as well. Like it's just you have the weirdest fucking shit.
Oh man, like I had to do the novel I've been working on off and on. There's this whole thing with like the Chicago fire, and this is like big pivotal point in history because this is when like a bunch of demons got through the gate and they covered it up. And so I'm like looking into like just a bunch of weird like geopolitical stuff, and I'm like, I'm on a list. The NSA knows. Like they just like I'm on a list now. But I have to believe that the NSA also has a category where like when you're writing or you're designing something where they're just like, oh, it's a writer's computer, never mind. They just throw you in the writer
Ignore.
folder, like ignore. Oh, it's a writer. Like let's see, they intermediate like periods of unemployment.
Yeah,
Drinks heavily. Like they see like your whole bio and like, oh, this is a writer, and they just throw it in the folder.
yeah, exactly. Just put it in the pile.
Yeah,
Yeah,
put it.
yeah,
If we need to come back to it.
yeah.
How long
But no,
can
like I mean, like
how long can someone survive in a forest fire? Ugh.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
realms do not want you to live. They just don't.
Well, I mean,
Um,
yeah. I mean, that's a big challenge, and the other part of it is like the human civilization, or human elf dwarf civilizations in within the realms. Like they have to have a pretty good reason for persisting because the whole
yeah.
world is out to destroy them.
Yeah,
And
I mean that was one of the most fun things that I think was it TS did or it was in maybe the Mortal Realm section. I think it was TS, but it basically he made a little chain of why each realm kind of needs each realm, and it was like yeah okay we have say Hammerhal Aksha, which is basically Hammerhal Aksha needs food, which they get for Hammerhal Gyra. Hammerhal Gyra needs lava to burn back all the plants, and it was like the Akshi trades wood, the like fire blasted strong wood, with Shaish
mm,
because Shaish has only like brittle dead wood and they need the strong wood to build stuff. But Shaish has these really cooling fruits that just keep everyone cool and actually so they trade them back for and it's you have like all these animals in Gur and their furs and meat is traded with people in Chaman and then Chaman trades the metal back with the people from Gur, and it's like it creates this ecosystem of people ping ponging around through realms to trade with each other.
I mean that's amazing. Um, I don't know. I mean, so you had like these possibilities, and now you got to like give people characters to interact with this world,
Sure.
right? How did you approach that? Because did you look at the minis? Did you look at the armies? You're like, I need to give people a way to interact with this super deadly, super lethal world. How does that start? And like, what was the like sort of drive there? Because
Sure. I mean,
you mentioned already, like, hey, you're going to be basically superheroes. Like, you already knew that.
yeah. I mean, I put the Soulbound like I consider the Stormcast Eternals are kind of the Avengers. I think the Soulbound are like Suicide Squad or X Force. I prefer X Force because I'm more of a Marvel fan.
Right on. Yep.
Um, but like they're the kind of Black Ops team that they get shit done. Um, but again, it was okay. We decided okay, we're gonna do archetypes.
Hmm.
Um, Archetypes are easy to understand. They're easy to gain, and I think Vince mentioned it a few times. They're like 80% done. You only have to make a few choices and you're good to go. But
Right.
here's the character creation rules if you want. So again, archetypes are very easy for everyone to understand. quick to just pick up and play. They're recognizable to people coming from the battle game. It gives us a strong base to build from because we know what they should be. We know what a Night Quester should be. We know what a Kurnoth Hunter should be. And we can quite concisely explain that to a new player and just get them going. It's like, okay, I'm a big tree with a bow and arrow. Happy days, great. So again, we wanted that kind of... That was the level we went. You know, we have knights for the Stormcast Eternals, which are not Lord Arcanums or Lord, even though I'd love to put some of those in. But so yeah, that was kind of the goal of introducing those types of characters and having them be at around that power level. And they're another way into the world. It's a way to understand the world. Someone can go, "Oh, I'm a Caradron. I just have to learn about the Caradron. I don't have to read this 350-page book."
Right.
As well.
Like I want to play Caradron. Like, boom, got it.
Yeah.
I do like that within your stat build, like, essentially you make the concession early that, like, Stormcasts are just better than you and deal with it, which felt like a really good decision. This reminds me of, like, going to go back to Rifts real quick. One of my favorite games is Kevin Simbidia, the designer of that game. He's got a sentence early on that, like, not all classes are going to be equal because life's not fair.
Yeah.
It's a really, like, kind of
sure.
a cynical way of putting it, but it's like, yeah, Stormcast should be better than just the regular thing, even though you're all awesome. Like, Stormcast are Superman, and you're still Batman. You know, like, you still get to be awesome, but you know, so I like that. Did you make that? Did you know that was the call going in? Like, Stormcast are just gonna be better, or did you do the numbers first and figure it out?
Yeah, we're basically like, Stormcast are going to be better. How do we? They are immortal god beings. They have to come back. But again, it's where do you put the balance, right? Where is that balancing factor? And for a lot of time, I think for people,
well, they can't soul fire, they can't critical. But
yeah, like, people want to know, okay, these are stronger. Why are they stronger? Where is the balance in this? And it's like an illusion of balance to some extent. Like, Stormcast get 5 extra XP, but you know, the other species get essentially 2 extra XP. So there's only really 3 extra XP in the difference. Right. Depends on how much weight you put on being able to be reforged. Then you have, okay, well, I have Sigmarite armor, I have Sigmarite weapons. You basically have the best stuff in the game
starting
from the
out with.
Yeah. But I think pretty quickly they'll even out, or, you know, the Soulbound might exceed them, but it's presenting it kind of upfront. These things are better, because I remember playing Dresden Files Fate and playing, like, Buffy the Vampire Slayer unit system and Angel unit system, and in that, like, you're the Slayer, so someone can be a Slayer and someone is just like Xander, who's just like a regular dude just walking around, and it's like, how do you get that balance? And the way both games handle it is essentially, with great power comes great responsibility. You get less choice because you have a responsibility, because all this power came with this responsibility. So I think in, like, Unisystem, it was like Buffy. I think there was, like, essentially fate points. There were hero points, I think.
Yeah.
And Buffy got, like, 5. She was a Slayer. She was already super powerful. She only got 5 hero points. But then, like, the regular people got, like, 10 or 20. So they could have those moments of, oh, I did something amazing and I helped out in a crunch moment, but they didn't have the base stats to back it up.
Right.
I think Dresden Files handled that kind of similarly with Fate system is, you know, if you're really powerful, you have less fate, so you can influence the world less. And then when we were looking at Stormcast Eternals, it was like, okay, well, they are Stormcast Eternals, and aside from the Night Quester, they should be with their Stormhost, you know? They are more powerful, but they have a responsibility to go back to the Stormcoast or be part of the Stormhost. They answer to Sigmar. They don't have the same autonomy as the Soulbound. Even though the Soulbound are essentially servants of God, or a god or multiple gods, they don't have the same autonomy as the Stormcast Eternals. They have more autonomy than Stormcast Eternals. They can kind of go and do whatever they want, whereas Stormcast have to go, hey, I have to go back and sign in for a little while with Sigmar.
Well, and you knew reforging was going to be in the game. I feel like as a GM, like just a random GM running a bunch of games, the ability to self-resurrect, you're just like, oh, that could break the game, right? Like, just imagine 1 in every 5 players can just do that. And you're just like, oh, they're gonna, well, like Age of Sigmar, that's a feature of what the storm, what even allows, you know, the civilization to fight back against chaos to begin with is these. Every battle is Thermopylae Stormcast Eternals, right? Like,
Yeah.
so like that's got to be in there, and you could have made it mechanic. You could have said you come back in 3d6 weeks. You could have done that, and you said no, it's narrative. Talk with your GM. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
really, I feel that's super ambitious. I don't know, like we've got probably a spread of like an audience right now who've played RPGs to a varying degree. You've just said to the GM and player, figure out how you self-res as a feature of your class that you're about to play or your archetype you're about to play.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it is that, you know, like, because, you know, I've seen people talking about weaponizing the Last Stand with Stormcast Eternals, which is like, yeah, great. That's kind of what they're made for. They're supposed to do that.
Yeah.
Like, one of my favorite things, I think it's mentioned in the Realm Gate Wars, where a battle went on so long that a Stormcast died and came back to be part of the battle again. Like, that's how long it went on. And it's, you know, does it take days? Does it take months? Does it take years? And there's more of a threat to reforging now with the Necroquake, which honestly we didn't have the time or space to get into in the book. But saying that, I was working on Champions of Order today, and we have a section dedicated to reforging with like 4 pages or something dedicated specifically to reforging and how it happens and all that kind of stuff. It's not mechanizing it. It's not 3d6 weeks you come back, but it has like, okay, well, you come back, you pick up like a little trait or a little quirk, and we have another lovely table you can roll on to get like a little
Tables
Stormcast
are
Eternal
fun.
quirk.
Tables are fun.
Yeah. But it just helps you kind of manage that a little bit more.
Well, like
So
I
yeah,
think about the novice GM who's not quite certain when to do it, right? You're giving them more tools to like go, oh yeah, I should have it resurrect now, and it should have this impact on the story, or it should have this impact on the character. You're giving them tools.
yeah,
Yeah. No.
yeah. I mean, it was trying to empower the GM to some extent as well. You know, just to say, and I think maybe a lot of people felt this, but for me and for my group of players, our playstyle changed completely after we played Apocalypse World.
Mm.
When I don't know if you've played Apocalypse World, but it's very much shared storytelling, and it starts off with, okay, the apocalypse happened, and it's not necessarily what was the apocalypse. It's okay, well, where are you now? What is the world like? Who, what settlement are you in? Who's there? Blah blah blah, and you play the different characters, and it's much more like you'll be playing the game, and you'll say, oh, is there somewhere around here I can buy weapons? And the GM will go, is there somewhere around here you can buy weapons? Who sells you weapons? And then the players kind of come up with it. It's like, oh well, I'm this mechanic guy. Maybe I'm actually the one who sells weapons to people, or you know, maybe I know someone who knows a guy. And it made us all really invest in building the world and creating a shared narrative. And for me and for my group, we took that into all of our other games. We still have obviously the GM where they, for the most part, come up with the story, but everyone felt empowered to create stuff about the world. Whereas a lot of the time it was asking permission to do it. And there's still some of that because you have to, you know, I'm in a good position where I've played with the same group for 20 years. So we all trust each other. We all know what we'll do and all that kind of stuff. But I think, you know, empowering players and GMs to do that is a big thing.
If I may, we kind of almost touched on this a little bit earlier, and we moved past the point, but this is a great time to bring it up. RPGs are, tabletop gaming in general is the biggest. You have what's called the entertainment dollar, right? The disposable income, the entertainment dollar. It's the most coveted dollar in capitalism. It's the entertainment dollar.
Capitalism.
Yeah, right. But like tabletop gaming specifically, and this includes CCGs and RPGs as well as traditional board games. This is the biggest booming industry of the entertainment dollar. You've got sports, which has largely stagnated, especially with what's going on with COVID in the world. You've got movies, you've got video games. Video games have also the entertainment dollar for video game, that's been stagnating. That has been sort of that industry has been seeing sort of, whilst they're making tons and tons of money, there's not a bunch of growth, right? So like you look at it, you go, oh, they're making billions and billions of dollars, but there's really not growing. Whereas like RPGs are growing, CCGs are growing. Like it's just it seems exponential every year. And this has been the trend for about 10 years. More and more people I made the joke about Stranger Things earlier. More and more people are coming to play an RPG. They're going to play like Settlers of Catan. Like what
Yeah.
more people are playing traditional games. I have a theory that I think as we become more digitized, we're looking for ways to connect to people more again, and
Yeah.
that's why I think the entertainment dollar has grown in tabletop traditional gaming. But you have more people essentially flooding into RPGs, and you have this because you don't have those 20-year groups where the trust is established. Like I know that if I throw horror themes out of nowhere against like Heywo, he's not gonna like cringe and like completely recoil from the game. I described death a little bit too long for like a new player recently, and I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't know. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
you have to kind of like that's got to be a new challenge for RPG design because before I feel like we took for granted that we were oh, like you're just going to be playing with your friends. No, you're going to go to a convention. You're going to play this with a bunch of
Yep.
strangers. You're going to
Yep.
throw out a post on Roll20 looking for group, to play a game. You're going to meet a bunch of people that you've been playing war games with, but you've never RPG'd with them before. There's
Hmm.
completely different strata to personality types and where you go with your characters and how personal an RPG can be. Beyond like, oh yeah, you tabled me turn one. I am so the difference between an RTS and RPG are very pronounced, to use video game
Yeah.
terms, right?
Yeah.
Like you're playing essentially when you're in the war game. What's the word you use for it? The combat game, the battle game.
Oh, the battle game. Yeah.
Yeah, the battle game. When you're playing the battle game, there's like a big disconnect, right? You're up,
Yeah.
you're a disembodied head and a hand moving around doing the stuff. When you're in a character, it's a lot different. So
Yeah. Absolutely.
there's got to be a challenge of designing RPGs now that there is this kind of boom that you have these new players alike. You can take for granted, 20 20-year relationships. That's got to be a small challenge. And you talked about empowering players, empowering GMs. How did you approach that for this game? A very, very loaded question. I'm sorry, but
Yeah. I mean, like, no, I think it's a big challenge. I think it's something worth, definitely, it's worth discussing, and it's something that everyone should be comfortable discussing because, you know, I've seen a lot of things where I think it was Evil Hat. No, I could be getting my companies mixed up. Evil Hat put out the accessibility toolkit, which was making RPGs accessible to people with various different disabilities or needs, whatever they had. And I think it was Monty Cook maybe put out the basically like a sheet of what you were comfortable with in RPGs. There's a couple of them going around, but it's like what you're comfortable with, horror themes, what level, how comfortable you are with it, and there's a tier of what you can do. And I think that's hugely important for like even people who've played together for years because you see all these dickhead comments on these and they're like, oh, I trust my players. I know that I can describe X, Y, and Z. It's like, yeah, that's great for you, but not everyone gets to play in that. Some people are finding games on Roll20. Some people are
right,
um walking into a shop and playing. Some people are playing on stream with people they trust, and then something happens, or there's so many different scenarios where these things can happen. So if you have, there's no harm in clearly defined rules.
right,
The harm is like, oh, we have to step back because we made a mistake. But you can give yourself those tools to prevent as much as possible something bad happening, and
right.
it's being much more aware. And like for myself and yourself, we are lucky enough to be like white men in our 30s, so we don't have like realistically we don't have a whole lot of problems to worry about. We're
You
not
you
people of
can't even
color,
hurt
but
my
we wouldn't.
feelings. Like I'm just
Yeah.
so like I've grown up
Yeah.
in a society where I don't even have feelings anymore. Like
Yeah, we're not minorities. We're not people of color. We're not part of the LGBTQ plus community, anything like that. That we have to worry. Even just a woman or female gamer walking into a, a store to try and play. That's it could be uncomfortable, and that's part of the reason that it's a male dominated industry because women don't want to play. It's like, well, a lot of time it's probably women didn't feel comfortable playing.
you
But I think those tools are hugely important. One thing we did was what we did, and again, part of making the RPG as accessible to everyone as possible, and for new GMs was we had a chunky game master chapter.
I love the
And
GM chapter, by the way. I like
thanks.
the
Um,
optional rules. I know there's some There's some like I know Vince and I are particularly guilty of making fun of the rules section. But like I love I actually do love the GM section because the sort of the tools and the well, I think what you're about to explain. So continue.
Yeah. So we have like a session zero in there, how to run a session zero, all that kind of stuff. And Katrina Ostrander wrote that. She's with Fantasy Flight actually, and it was before she was with Fantasy Flight. Just we didn't poach her anyway, but she actually had a much larger chapter on dealing with problem players and the different kinds of players, how to like interact with them at the table, how to get their buy-in and stuff. So we had about, Jesus, probably about 10 pages, maybe. I think we had to cut from that we are going to be putting on our website. But it is those kind of tools, like, okay, running a session zero, running with people you're not used to, setting ground rules, content warnings, what people are comfortable with, what people are not comfortable with. And it's making all that stuff, like addressing it front on. One thing that kind of like Cubicle 7 tagline, though I'm not sure we use it that much, is basically everyone's invited to the fun.
Yeah.
I would say with the caveat, as long as you're not a dick, basically.
Don't be a dick. Yeah, get out.
Yeah, you're invited to the fun as long as you're not invited to the fun. Yeah, the Will Wheaton, don't be a dick.
Yeah, well, you need to see unpack it a little bit, but like, if you're a dick, you're excluding other people, and why should I include somebody who excludes people?
Exactly.
Via the transitive property of being a dick, you have made me a dick. So,
yeah.
If you a dick, get out, like the Will Wheaton. Like,
yeah. I don't let the door hit you. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think those things are very important. I think now, especially with that expanded player base, you know, this might sound really condescending, but kind of what we teach people as they're coming into new RPGs, and if the goal of Soulbound and some of our other games is to bring new people into the hobby, what we teach them now will be their habits for the next 20, 30 years. And as they introduce new people, that'll be their habits, and that'll be the norm. So on Charlotte's stream and on a lot of the streams, when it starts, it's okay, what pronouns do you prefer? And just normalizing that is a huge step. Oh, yeah. I think doing that kind of thing is like at the table. Okay, here's a checklist. What are you comfortable with? Are you comfortable with what level of violence, what level of horror? And then you have stuff like whatever needs to be talked about.
Yeah, there's some. I have got a couple of decided rails that they're no-fly zones. Like I've always had them as a GM, but you have other GMs aren't me. Like they don't have the same like background I have with my life and my storytelling. Like the fact that I come from a biracial family has been really it's made me already start trying to see the world from different perspectives, which is what for me RPGs kind of are. Is like you get to like go in and be somebody else, right? But like you're always going to have that common thread of who you are. And I think that like RPGs are great for. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna be a bold prick now. I think RPGs make the world a better place. Like straight up, I think that they teach us empathy and there's the problem solving, and we can talk about the math aspects, some of the more measurables. But I think that like they teach you empathy. They teach you how to think about the world from a different perspective. And if more people played RPGs and not just the murder hobo. And I'm not gonna harsh your mellow. If you love murder hobo campaigns, honestly, like awesome. Like if you're having that like push button, receive fun, hit the loot pinata, get money, level up, I will never get mad at that style of gameplay. I will never degrade or deride anybody for having fun that way. That's not my thing. But like,
sure, yeah.
If you're going to like, truly kind of like get into a character's mindset. I've actually watched like kind of Chuck Moore in real time. He said on my show on RantCast multiple times like, "Oh, I just always play myself in games," and this is actually from a capacity of talking about like Mass Effect, the Renegade versus the Paragon playthrough. He's like, "Well, I just always play myself." I'm already watching him kind of like go like weird rampant murderous, and I'm like, I'm just like I see you exploring parts of your mind and seeing it from this, like, yeah, maybe it's hyperbole, like you have a like an exaggerated view of like what a murderous witch elf might be, but also I get to see the gears turn between having to make that the way your character interacts with our totally made up world, and then who you really are. And I think that in that space between, people really explore who they are, and when you throw in other people doing that, you have all of this space to explore just the human condition. Not to be too lofty
Yeah.
about it, but I think that's what makes RPGs truly special.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the same as, fiction is a way for us to tackle stuff that we're uncomfortable with, and you see the rise. Like I looked up. I was looking for a new book. I was like, okay, top horror fiction novels of 2019, and like four or five out of 10 of them were about an apocalypse caused by us ignoring climate change. And that was basically, oh, okay, that's what's on people's mind. But in relation to RPGs, I think RPGs can be a really great place for tackling those heavy
Yes.
themes if you and the group are in the right frame of mind for it. Like, so you have things, and this is particularly pertinent now with the Black Lives Matter movement and or resurgence going on in the States and around the world.
Yep.
You might have a case where someone wants to play a game and they want to explore racism in a tabletop RPG. And if everyone's on board with that, go for it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, a lot of people have to deal with that shit every single fucking day, and that's their fun time. They don't want to deal with that.
Right.
So it's just, yeah, it's communication. It's, that session 0 and that, hey, is this okay? And it's, no one is ever hurt by asking. That's the thing, and I think it's facilitating that as much as possible.
Well, and go on. Sorry.
No, it's just saying, I've had characters in the past. Like, I have one character that I've played for years, and I know that he's gay, but it's never come up in the game at all. But it's just like I was playing the character, I was like, no, that feels like that's him.
Mm-hmm.
I have friends I've played with, and they for years they played male characters, and then a few years later they transitioned, and it was like, yeah, that was kind of almost, it's a way to possibly explore those things. But again, I'm not best positioned to talk about this, but I think just having that facility for people to start a conversation, that's all we need, really.
Right, and like I said pretty. I had Charlotte. I had Monica from BXP. She works for. I guess she'd technically be a rival because she's helping design like Exalted Essence. And then my friend Katie, who's played.
No rivals.
I know. I think creation is a collaborative process. I will always.
Yeah, I mean, like I've said so many. People are like, oh, I've read. I've Free League books there. I've Green Ronin. I've Monty Cook. Like, you're reading everything. You don't have to read it, but it's good to know what other people are doing, and you get ideas, you get inspired by it.
Well, like I say at the very basic level, all knowledge is shared. Like, it's not invented; it doesn't come from nowhere. Like, I look at the same clouds you do. I've probably read Dresden. We all read, and we're consuming versions of reality at any given time, and so we're drawing inspiration from all of this stuff at any given time, from a very literal sense to like our environments, to the metaphysical or metaphoric sense of like books and fiction and stuff. And then like we draw and we create stuff based on all of that. And that's why I think like it's about there's a shared experience going on when it comes to like creating. Like you're that's why I think it's constantly collaborative. Like, I've watched Mad Max as much as anybody else, so like when I see, like cars going fast, I want them to have like crazy like blah, because I've seen Mad Max. Just like you're always kind of drawing from your inspirations and building stuff. But where I was going with this is like on that show I talked about how like, so I grew up in a biracial family, and like racist elves and racist dwarves isn't like, just really doesn't come up in my games, because it's like what you said is like, no, I get it. No, I get it. The whole race element thing, and I'm like, I don't want to play that right now. I remember me and my brother sneaking out of my window because the older kids on the block used to watch us walk to the bus in the morning, and they would fight us and stuff. And so like hiding
Jesus
and
Christ.
yeah, no, I'm just saying. So like, oh yeah, like hey, knife here. I'm like, cool. On the other hand, I'm not like, you're not going to offend me because like, how could you possibly know that story unless I tell you? Um, but on the other hand, it's like I get the checking out from reality aspect of RPGs as well, and that's the important. I'm just bringing this all back to the importance of a session zero. Like, just like, do you want to explore that? No, I just want to murder hobo. I don't want to have a moral decision to like fight the bad guy. I don't want a moral gray area where like there is a bad guy and I get to beat the bad guy up and then I solve the problem. I want a game like that.
Yep.
You know? Right? Like I beat the bad guy up and you're like, "Yeah, but violence begets more violence." And like secretly the bad guy was a good guy, but he was just doing bad stuff and you didn't know about it. I'm like, "I am not signed on for that type of thinking. I will go
Yeah.
and like like I
Yeah.
will
I want to fight Voldemort. Voldemort is clearly a bad guy.
bad
Like,
guy,
that's
yeah,
fine.
like
Yeah.
bad dude. Like I just want to
Yeah.
fight the bad. So I what I really, I don't want to like tell the heavier, get onto the heavier stuff to really just point out that like there's also that surface level enjoyment, but the only way you're ever gonna know that is to kind of, if you talk to your party, if you talk to your GM, and to give players and GMs the tools to even think that way is, I think, important, and that's why bringing this all the way back, why I really love your GM section, because you even talk about the session zero. You don't hit it over. You don't like just smash it in over the head with it. Like you're not just like lambasting me with it the whole time, but you bring this up, and I think that's enough when you have this new wider field of people, nerds, not nerds, played RPGs for 20 years, never played an RPG before, they've only ever wargamed, they've played the video game, they played Total Warhammer, and then like someone pitched them playing an RPG, and then they saw classic fantasy, but then someone's like, oh, well, you started out as a peasant. They're like, I don't want to be a peasant, I want to be the Justice League. I want
Yeah,
to be
exactly.
X-Force. Yeah. And then they oh, Soulbound then. And so then they're, like, I think about like people coming into playing a game from all different areas and then having just a good fulcrum to bounce it all on. And that's what I enjoy about Soulbound. And I think it does a really good job of like being like, here you are, you're going to get something familiar depending on where you come in at it from. We're going to raise your awareness to like, hey, a session zero exists, do the thing, now make an archetype that you may or may not be familiar with. If you're a D&D number cruncher, you're going to go ahead and like, build your character from the ground up. And so I really like, again, kudos to you guys.
Yeah. Going back to that, I'm like, okay, well now we've done first edition. What are we gonna do with second edition? Now we can go fucking crazy.
Yeah. You've got them now though. Like now that you got a captivated audience, now you get to like just go over the top. So I've got one question here. From chat, it says, Emmet, do you GM or do you run a game right now?
Yes, both.
And can you talk about it a little bit while I go and talk to my family? So I'm doing that thing. This is a RantCast tradition. You got to sing us one, buddy.
I feel like I should talk. Yeah, I'm good. I feel like I should talk to here because this is where the chat is, but I'm going to talk to the camera. Yeah, so I am not mostly a forever GM, but kind of by choice. I prefer to GM. I just finished up our Tomb of Annihilation campaign for D&D 5th edition, which we've been playing for about, I don't know, since the book came out, like 2.5 years, prolonged breaks between them. And now we are starting into our Soulbound campaign, finally. So we'll be running the starter set in Brightspear, and everyone's going to be making characters rather than using pre-gens, because that's just how my group is. So yeah, we're running that at the moment. I'm playing in a game, again, D&D, Storm King's Thunder, where I'm playing my Monster Hunter Warlock Hexblade, I think. So yeah, I'm playing in that, but mostly I like running games. I picked up Star Wars Force and Destiny beginner box, which I really want to run as well because I've never actually run a Star Wars game. What's going on in your game? And my Soulbound game, nothing so far. But actually, sorry, no. The Grund just crashed into the Kindling Forest because we're kicking off with Crash and Burn. Who do we have? We have Imrin, the Sharon Tidecaster. We have, I can't remember anyone else's name. We have Derek, who is the Kurnoth Hunter, and then one of my mates made an Endrin Master with a big ass hammer. And then when we get to Brightspear, I think we might actually run one or two of the side quests that's going to appear in Cities of Flame, which is the supplement coming with the gem book. Sorry, Elaine. So Cities of Flame, along with the gem book, should be out very soon, as in maybe within a week, hopefully. But yeah, so one of Elaine's adventures in that, Lights in the Gutter, is about Skaven, which I think would be a nice change of pace. So I'm probably going to do that. There's one or two other adventures in there. There's one called Steel Birds, which is kind of a continuation of the story of the Grund, which you can imagine see popping up fairly regularly, I think. And then after that, we'll kick into the adventure in Brightspear, which should be good. Then what's the plan after that? I might go to Anvilgard because I love Anvilgard. Anvilgard is like one of my favorite cities in Age of Sigmar. And we have 6 adventures set there. I'm not going to actually talk about that much, but we should be showing off the cover very soon. So the start of the starter set, you basically, to give a little more information on Brightspear, you are, for some reason I decided it'd be a good idea to make a city that looks like an orrery. For anyone who doesn't know what an orrery is, just Google it, Orrery. But basically you have the lower tier of the city, which is the old city, and then around that the new city, which is being built in the vein of Azerite structures being built out in rings. And then you have the upper tier, which is like a plate sitting on top of it, like Midgar, basically. And then beneath that you have these kind of arms coming out, each topped with a sphere representing each of the 9 realms, including the realm of chaos. And the entire upper plate slowly rotates. And then you have the Brightspear spear shooting up straight through it. So yeah, the start of the starter set begins with that, which is where we're going to go to next, which should be a lot of fun.
Love it.
Welcome back.
Yeah, no, welcome back to my own show. Good job, I think.
I just talking about Brightspear. It's all good. I'm just more back to Brightspear.
So is a question that just kind of occurred to me now. Was writing in Brightspear like writing in your own homebrew into? Did it feel a little bit like that?
Not quite, because I think like a lot of it actually I think came from TS and initial conversations with Elaine. And Katrina had been involved as well, and a couple of other writers. So we're kind of just chatting about it. I think I did come up with the name Brightspear, which I'm going to hang my hat on.
Nice, yeah, nice. You named the thing.
I was like, that's mine. Yeah. I think I basically just read the Celestial Warbringers thing, and it's like sometimes they're called the Spears of Sigmar. I was like, oh, there's already like a lighthouse here. Let's just call it Bright Lighthouse.
Yeah. See, put in Alan Wake reference. Got it. So I do want to like talk about one thing. So like, you guys, I should say all y'all like released this pretty ambitious project, the first Soulbound RPG, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Amid like sort of a global pandemic, right? And you continue to play this, and you mentioned earlier on the like how like Cubicle 7 kind of relocated to Ireland, and it was going to be like centralized there. But then you also mentioned like one of your writers in Kentucky. I missed where Elaine might be from. You have some Australian.
Scotland, somewhere in Scotland. I think.
Somewhere in Scotland.
Sorry, Elaine, if I've outed you as being in Scotland.
She's got a Scotland. She's got a Scotland flag in her Twitter handle.
Oh, awesome! Cool.
Yeah. So yeah.
Dundee. Oh, my degree is from Dundee. I never went there.
So you have this like international crew essentially.
Sure.
And at one point, maybe a central, more office-style gig, but then you had this like international crew. I guess, what was it like writing an RPG, releasing an RPG in the midst of this pandemic? Did you have to adapt, or was it kind of like a cool signifier of the changing of the times that you can compile these different stories from across and around the bout? And then what challenge did you have sort of managing that as the the producer, right?
Yeah, there was a couple of things to it. Like, I mean, getting it out during the pandemic was great. It was a really good achievement. It also really helped the company because, a lot of RPG companies are a huge amount of the income from RPG companies comes from bricks and mortar, comes from people walking into a shop and buying a book. So trying to replace some of that with digital sales is a challenge. So it was actually a really good time for both Wrath and Glory and Soulbound to come out.
The art in this book, especially, like I would go into, I think about sort of like more like classical or me when I was getting into RPGs where I just had to buy every RPG that I saw. Like I'd go to Gen Con and like every booth, like I was a mark,
Yeah.
But like the art was like one of the big standouts. This book's so beautiful. The art is great, and I
Yeah.
feel you lose that in the digital side of things a little bit.
Yeah. Like you need to view it as a 2-page spread because a lot of it sits better as a 2-page spread. Like,
Yeah.
so I can't wait to get the book. But in relation to teams, so let me just try and think. Okay, so yeah, a lot of the team in Ireland is more so the managerial team, I guess. So we have, Dom's there. Elaine, a different Elaine, is our like business officer. Then we have me and Zach and Porrick, who are all producers, and we have 2 graphic designers, Rory and Rachel, and then we have our shipping and customer service team, Kieran and Anthony. Donna, who's our head of marketing, is over here as well. So that's the kind of core team we have. God, I hope. Oh, Kira as well is here as well. That's our core team that we have in Ireland. And then we have Sheena Quinn, which is S.I. Fodda. If you ever see her in a book, it looks like sign. It's Sheena Quinn. She's our editorial head. She's based over here, but doesn't work in the office because she lectures in Trinity College, I think, over here. Then we have Chris, who's an editor. And then on the actual Soulbound book in relation to what writing was needing to be finished off. Yeah, Elaine was doing the bestiary. TS was doing his stuff. TS is based in California, I think. So Elaine's in Scotland, TS is in California. The other writing was done from the other writers, which was like David Geimer, Clint Werner, Josh Reynolds. I think David and Clint are actually in the UK. I think Josh is in the States. But yeah, for that last bit of kind of gathering everything together, we're at the stage. I think the only outstanding writing was Elaine.
Later Heretics.
And me. And Elaine got hers done way before I got mine done. So yeah, but then it was, handing off to editing. So Chris did the editing, and he's in Kentucky. So nothing was really different there. But we started to hit friction when it came to doing the layout and stuff like that. It's much easier to walk across a room and tell and say, hey, we actually just need to move this over a couple of pixels than try and put it in a markup a PDF and say send the notes like that. We also had an issue, unfortunately, with our graphic designer. He lives in this like black spot in Ireland
internet?
where the internet, it was like fucking dial-up basically. Like it was horrific. And the files are huge. Like there are a couple of gigs of files. So, when you'd even outputting the PDF for me to review, his computer would run slow, and then it would take a while to output it, and then he'd have to upload it. Then I'd have to download it, make notes, send it to him. Then he'd have to download it again. And yeah,
this is like a week-long affair, right? Like this is like he sends the file out on like the beginning of the day. You don't get it until dinner. Like
yeah. Like to give a direct example of that was basically the PDF was done, I think Wednesday evening, the day before it came out. And there are 1 or 2 like typos and errors in it. And I think the bookmarks hadn't been exported. We basically just hadn't ticked that button.
What was the rolling joke in the chat there about one of the typos? Like you forgot to capitalize something? I can't remember what it was.
Oh, Sliveneth was in there anyway a few times.
Yeah. Maybe that's what it was.
But yeah, so basically there was those few issues, and it was like 5 o'clock, so people are finished working, but people have been working some extra hours. But at that stage, it was like, okay, by the time this entire books get outputted again, So I was like, fuck it, we want to get this out tomorrow. So I opened it in Adobe Acrobat. I didn't have the InDesign files because they were too fucking big to send. So I opened an Acrobat and I made some changes. Changed a few things. Nothing major, but without realizing that introduced some errors. So when I edited a page in Acrobat, it fucked up the kerning in a couple of places. People probably saw it in the first PDF that went out. There was like one of the Carjon pages, the kerning was fucking crazy, and some of the spacing between the letters was nuts. But yeah, so that was kind of the biggest challenge, I think, was just because one of our people had really bad internet, so we couldn't get that quick back and forth. But aside from that, it went relatively well. I think it was a good litmus test for us, I suppose, and a good way to see how well things stood up. Because the company had primarily worked remotely before, but for us to get a core book out while working from remotely was a big thing. It was also like a little bit of a bummer not being in the office when it released.
Because you want that, like, you want to bust out the good bourbon that you guys...
We're like, oh, we did it, hooray! Whereas it was just like, we were on call, we had a group chat to
like Skype or Zoom or whatever.
Yeah. And we're like, okay, we're going to put it out now. And then we're like, it's out. Okay. Fuck, the website crashed.
That's right. The early surge of downloads. That's right. I forgot that was a thing that did happen. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah. Apparently we actually got doxxed basically because we were on the second highest server that Amazon can provide, I think. And that's the same server we'd used for Wrath and Glory launch, and it was the same amount of traffic, and it was fine. But it's when we launched Soulbound, I think around that time there was a lot of WordPress sites being like bombarded with bots and things. So that was actually what it was. I'm going to say it's the traffic, but it was the traffic and a load of bots going to the site. Mm-hmm. So I think it took maybe 2 or 3 hours to get us back up, but by the end of the day, we were on the most expensive, biggest fucking server that Amazon provides.
Well,
which we should not have needed, but that's where we ended up.
No, I think I do think that like that this has been a salve from someone who does play the actual like war game itself a bunch. Like I'm a big... I talk about I am a writer and but I'm not a Neo in the community. So I don't know how deep you are. I'm not technically a Neo. I'm not on the narrative side of things too much, even though I'm very much a writer brain, narrative. I played RPGs first. I got into Warhammer because I was over at my friend's house making a character for TMNT the RPG in like the early 90s. Yeah. Hell yeah. I was making a character for that, and I looked over on his shelf, and he had like old school high elves, like the pewter models, and I'm like, what's this thing? And that's how I got into Warhammer. So like, I'm an RPG guy first, but like,
first taste is free.
right, yeah, right here, baby. No, but like, what happens is like, when you go into like Sigmar, if you listen to like my content, like I usually have like a competitive skew. I talk about like the like competitive aspects of things, building good lists, so on and so forth. And so like, I feel like from a personal standpoint, it kind of like it gets like lost that how much I love storytelling and RPGs, and I feel like it gets lost. And so when all of the tournaments get canceled, which is really how I kind of exist in the AOS community, is like I play tune-up games with my friends. I theorycraft and I do stuff. Basically, it's just like I have lab phase and then I have tournament phase. And so like all the games I play in Age of Sigmar are lab phase if it's at home, where I'm just like, does this work? Oh, is this a cool combo?
Yeah.
And then like I go to a tournament and then I'm like, ha 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 ha, look at how clever I am. Right? Like that's it. And so then to suddenly be making a podcast and, telling people how to write a good list and like, I think the Seraphon book is going to kind of take over and it's going to be great. And like, we don't get to see that play out because I'm in the middle of telling you that like Seraphon's going to be the next hot thing. It's going to be the next boogeyman. And you don't get to see it play out. And then so luckily my show's always been about these like rabbit holes and the random other conversations, but I do have that competitive skew. And then Soulbound comes out, and I get to really let that inner part of myself out of how much I'm just a nerd for this stuff of the story and things. And I think that it's been a great salve to the community where we're suddenly like, we can't play games together, but we can play games together still. Like, I can't push my models in front of your face because, Lulu, my partner, she's high risk. I have failed. I have failed a 3-inch charge with a reroll before in my life in playing the game of Age of Sigmar. I'm not going to do that in reality, and the love of my life is dead now. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I'm not going to do that. So now like we retreat to online, and you get to like play tabletop role playing games together in this world that even if you're the filthiest meta chaser stereotype in the world, there's a reason you play Age of Sigmar instead of War Machine or whatever else,
Yeah, sure.
because this world is what's I think is really the engaging, beautiful. Our models are the best too, but like also the world
They're
is
fucking amazing. They really are.
right, right. And so like I think that like this was a great salve for the community, and so you had that run on the servers of people who probably weren't even going to get into RPGs, and like now they are because this is the next way to interface. And so I'm a huge fan of it. Um, Also, you gave me the digital download when I bought my physical copy, so um, I don't know. Dom maybe was the one who said that you should do that. I don't know who.
That's kind of always been his thing,
Yeah.
really. I think because we have the bricks and mortar program, which is basically if someone goes into a brick and mortar shop, as long as they're like part of the bricks and mortar program, which is actually what it's called, the store owner can go, here you go, here's a digital copy, and they'll give it to you as well. But so Dom's kind of always been part of that, and he's kind of the opinion, if people are going to pirate your stuff, they're probably not your customers anyway. So give your customers the PDF, basically.
It's the same thing. It's like pirates are going to pirate. Just don't get in the way of the people who want to actually give you money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I mean, like the I've just gotten into Star Wars Force and Destiny, which is the Fantasy Flight Star Wars game, and because of contractual issues, well, I'm assuming they can't release PDFs. Speaking from experience with Lord of the Rings, it was basically it gets a tangle because the contracts aren't specific enough. Basically, it's like you have the digital rights to this, so EA has the digital rights to Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
A PDF qualifies as like a digital game,
Mm-hmm.
so Fantasy Flight can't release the PDF for that. Basically,
Gross.
my point is, I can't get the PDFs for any of the Fantasy Flight stuff I want. So I'm like looking at eBay and it's like £100 to get a 90-page supplement and shit like that. So
I don't know how your laws are in Ireland or the EU, but like in the States, you are allowed essentially a scanned copy of your thing if you physically own it, right? Like you're allowed
yeah,
that. And so like theoretically, like I have a whole like massive awesome bookshelf. My bookshelf's over here. It's just off screen. I have this like awesome bookshelf with a bunch of like RPGs. That's all that's on that bookshelf there. Um, like I'm allowed to physically, like since I have physically purchased them, I'm allowed to sit there and scan every one of them, and then.
yeah, sure.
But like I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna download the PDF and then like tell you to take me to court.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, or like the one that looks slightly jankier, so that like prove I didn't like scan this. Like, like burden of proof is on you, because my American
yeah.
hubris. But like, so like, why get in the way of paying customers wanting to like have your thing? By the way, as a RPG nerd, I despise PDFs. I hate them. They're inferior. I want to physically go through the book and. I mean, here's my Ossiarch Reaper's tome sitting right next to me because I was taking notes for a podcast. I've got a stack of crap here. Like, I want to physically have the book and page
Yeah,
through it. We
yeah.
talked about
It's not the same. It's not the same. Like,
no, no. Like, it is. I am settling if I'm looking at the PDF of an RPG.
yeah, yeah.
Like,
But like we have all the digital copies of the battle tomes for reference.
mm,
But we also have the physical books, and I have some of the physical books on my shelf. The rest are actually in the office. But I'd much rather go and get the physical thing and go, hey, this is
well,
actually, it's much better to leaf through the book than
well,
scroll through a PDF.
yeah. Well, like a PDF, for instance. Like, watch this. I'm gonna some super high-tech things going on here. Okay, hey, I found something interesting in the book real quick. I'm just going to put my thumb here, and I'm going to go over here. Oh, cool. Look, I'm back. Like, you can't do it in a PDF no matter how good the bookmarking control F control like it's you just can't do it. And, and then when I have post-its all throughout my own book, like literal post-its hanging off the sides and stuff, where I just like I grab the post-it and then I flip to the section of my book. No PDF has ever simulated that for me.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
uh,
But I was giddy when I found the Force and Destiny core book by pure chance. Someone on an Ireland D&D Facebook group was like, "I'm selling all these books," and they had Force and Destiny and another supplement, and they were selling them both for 40 quid. And like the Force and Destiny core book, which is 450 pages, it's like 100 or something more when you go on eBay or Amazon or like that, and it was like 40 quid for the two books. I was like, yeah, I'll take that. It had a bit of damage on the front, and I just taped it shut, and it's perfect now.
yeah.
I don't know if I'll ever play it, but I just love having. I'm a collector. I just love having books
Yeah.
on my shelf.
Well, I think that's part of the nerd, that draw to go back to the table too. Like,
Yeah,
if Sony, unlikely it does, Sony goes under. You know, my digital library of my video games are gone forever.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
You know, the digital thing that you have, like, you don't actually own it, you're licensing it. You're borrowing it temporarily. Like, there's a I've gone back and forth on this because I'm a big tech nerd and I love technology and, you know, top of line computers, and I want the newest phone and so on and so forth. When it gets right down to it, like, my games I physically want and my entertainment I physically want, so that you can never take it away from me. I
Yeah.
own the VHS original Holy Trinity of Star Wars because, like, with the exception of Laserdisc, I can't get the proper Han Solo scene. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's on
yeah,
VHS because when it went to DVD, that was the remaster thing. Like,
yeah.
give me my childhood in a case that is personified.
I
Like,
go like I'm going through that now, like with my son. I'm like, how am I going to show them the proper ones? And people are going to think I'm a heathen, but like he saw episode 7 first
that's fine.
because I really wanted to rewatch episode 7, and he
That's
was in
fine.
the room.
That's
So
fine.
I was like, okay,
No,
yeah.
this
But
is no. The Star Wars is a great talk about, like, fandom and the longevity of fandom versus the worthiness of fandom. One thing I will give up to Star Wars is no matter where you watched it in time, when it caught you, you became a Star Wars fan, right?
yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's worthy, is that you became a fan.
Yeah. I
You
mean,
know,
like, I really like the new Star Wars trilogy. Rey is probably one of my favorite characters. My son really likes Rey, but I also have a daughter who's like 1 year old, and just the fact that there is a female Jedi that I can go, hey, look,
rad. Yeah.
it makes such a big deal. But going back to like the digital thing, and this kind of circles back around to the tweet that triggered all this. One of the most interesting phenomena, I suppose, of the last 10 years, maybe like the whole digital generation, is Silent Hill PT, which you like cannot get legitimately anymore.
Like,
It's like this urban legend now
I,
because it was removed from the store, and
I,
people have just like you
I
can't
can't.
re-download
I
it
have
and
a
stuff.
PS3. I can't ever uninstall that from,
Yeah,
or it's gone forever.
and it's going to like live on the internet because people have put it on their
Yeah, the
PC
little
and they've modded it
archivey.
and all this
Yeah,
kind of shit. Like,
yeah.
but
Well,
that's amazing to me. It's like this digital artifact that it never existed as a physical thing, and because of Konami and whoever else, they decided to remove it. So there is no way to get it. And like I can imagine to be in 10, 20 years, it's like, oh, this game existed, and be like, no, it fucking didn't.
well,
It's like the Atari ET, basically.
well, it does. It a little bit of a legend with them throwing it in, like, landfills and stuff like that. They did do that, but, like, the copies are around. Like, they didn't get rid of
Yeah,
them
yeah,
entirely.
absolutely. Yeah.
No, this is, again, like, you've done Soulbound interviews. You've done on text, and you've gone on, you know, like, various shows. Like, it was when you tweeted about Silent Hill where I'm like, now we have to talk. Like, that was
Oh,
it.
finally, he's saying something interesting.
No, it wasn't that. It's just like, I didn't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste your time because, like, if I don't have anything new to add to the zeitgeist of gaming and nerdery and life, and then, like, I'll let better people do it. Like I'm not going to be the breaking interviewer where you say the thing about the thing that you've been talking about for 3 months. Like I'm not going to get the big scoop. But like we talked about like horror tropes a few times now already, and like so like I have a particular background. I've Insomniac, so like Silent Hill is already in my like cerebral. I like Insomniac, night terrors and sleep paralysis. This is like part of my thing, and
Yikes! Jesus Christ!
Yeah. I've got the trifecta of like sleep for me is torture. It sucks. But I write really metal as shit horror stories because write what and when you like are sitting there paralyzed, you have this like dog-faced demon snarling at you, and you're like, I know it's not real. I know it's not real. I know it's not real. But Matrix moment, your mind makes it real. I can write a hell of a great story about that thing, right?
Yeah.
So like H.P. Lovecraft also like had super racist, but also had like really like vivid night terrors, and so a lot of like the Cthulhian mythos that or cosmic horror, which is becoming the more acceptable term, like is from person trouble like just had whose brain just like went crazy when they went to sleep, right? Like, so I've got that going for me. And so Silent Hill really, really resonated because Silent Hill is a story of personal horror, right?
Yeah.
It just like Harry versus James is like a classic. I feel like that's a. Welcome everybody watching this show about Soulbound. We're about to go into that.
Yeah, you can check out or check in depending on your preference.
Yeah. So hyped for this convo. But like, before we go on to that, the thing that you did on like the Charlotte interview, which is where you actually, how did you end up? What was your path to becoming the producer for Soulbound? I heard you started in video games.
Yeah, I'll kind of skim through this quick. So basically, I did a 2-year degree in college for game design, where I learned a ton of stuff, but it was very broad strokes. You kind of touched on everything. It was a bit of coding, there was a bit of art, there was a bit of 3D modeling. Game theory was the thing I loved most in that. Then after that, I was like, okay, well, you need to be specialized to get in the industry. And I had always been a decent artist. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go do animation, which it was in the same college, and it was actually a world-renowned college. So I got in there, and I realized that everyone else is better than me. So I almost quit, but I kept going. But then kind of like in my third year, it came about that we were doing a group project. It was a bit of a mess, and someone basically needed to grab it and kind of pull it together and get a hold of it and try and organize it, because it was 4 students. Like, they're never going to fucking organize themselves. So I ended up basically taking...
As a student, I kicking and screaming and last minute that I will do the thing. Like, leave me alone.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, well, we have 2 minutes of film. Okay, well, these 2 seconds have to be animated, and blah, 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 blah. And if you don't know animation, 2 seconds of animation is, if you're doing traditional hand drawn, you're drawing 24 frames. Otherwise, you're animating that in 3D model or whatever.
Yeah.
I basically went, okay, we all have to do this.
Several hours is really like the translation, like the impractical.
Yeah.
A hand drawn, like for like stop motion of 10 seconds is like 20 hours of filming, and hand
stop motion is fucking crazy.
Grueling.
Like, holy shit. However bad like traditional animation is, like flipping the paper back and forth, stop motion is next level shit. Like,
grueling.
Heckuva on the 2 Strings is one of the most beautiful films I've ever seen in my life.
So good, right?
If you look at the background, it scared the shit out of my son, actually. I need to go and watch it again. If you look at the behind the scenes stuff of how they did that, it's just holy crap.
Oh, it's so good. Kubo on the 2 Strings, rantcast / Emmet endorsement. Go watch it right now. We'll pause. You can come back. Go watch it. Okay.
We'll just wait. Hang on.
Welcome back. Welcome back. All right. So you watched Kubo on the 2 Strings. You're caught up. Continue.
So after that, I ended up in an animation company. Again, I ended up doing a bit of project management and stuff in there. The animation company decided they wanted a little bit of a games. They split the company into 3, which it was like animation, advertisement, and games. I was over the kind of games part. Um, then from there, I left that company and joined another company. It was dedicated app company making apps for kids, which was a storytelling app, which it was something I was kind of quite invested in, whereby like a kid could play through an app, and at the end of the app, they'd have a book that they had created.
Mm-hmm.
Really cool idea. It never quite hit exactly where we wanted to. But kind of, towards the end, things turned a little sour with that company for a variety of reasons. Just when things were kind of looking the worst, my mate sent me a text and he said, "Hey, have you seen this?" And it was an RPG company looking for a producer in Ireland. I was like, "This can't be real." It was like, it's literally all, like, without exaggerating, it's like all of my life choices have led to this point.
Yeah. Well, we
Because
talked
up to
about
that point, go ahead.
no, I talked about bracketing earlier. Like, if I wrote a narrative of your life, I would have
Yeah.
written it this way.
Yeah,
Like, I would have. Like,
because
with starting with
the lead up to that, I had been like, for a year, I've been like, honestly, like, miserable in the job, and a way of getting past that was I was creating content for the DMs Guild, which is the D&D community content program. So I've been creating content for that, which was kind of helping me get out there, and I had actually ended up managing like quite a big project within the community for that.
Yeah, my gunslinger class, I'd never published to it. I wrote a gunslinger class, and like, it's just sitting on my computer right now because I'm like, oh, they're just gonna reject this because their gunslinger classes are all about like I don't know, like alchemy and mechanisms, and I just wrote like Clint Eastwood tropes, the class.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you have a literal, one of my archetypes is the man with no name, and their whole thing is if you play the Ghostwalk RPG, where like you have anonymity as the power, is like if they don't know your name, then you have like bonuses against them. Like, so I wrote the like man with no name as like an archetype, and then I wrote like a bunch of like big dirty Harry, like just you have a single big gun, and like, so I did this like whole, and I never tried to even publish. Like, I'm gonna submit this to the DM's Guild. I'm like, no one cares
I
about
mean,
like
like,
gunslingers.
no one cares about your gunslingers because they have Matt Mercer's gunslinger. I'm sorry to say.
Right, exactly. And like,
not...
and he's like got the true. And I'm like, yeah, why would I even send this into it? And like,
Yeah.
my angle is completely different from his, and his is just like a bastardized version of the 3.0.
The Pathfinder one, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just like, wow.
It is a good class, and we're gonna go off a tangent, but again, it has that thing where
We're gonna
the better
RantCast.
you are, the more likely you are to fail because it has critical fails, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I had a gunslinger class I wanted to do, which is based on the Dark Tower.
Yes. So... no, that's in there. Like, no, I've got the essentially like he's got like an animal companion, and like because Roland is his whole thing is it's the two gunslinger version, and it's called the reloading trick. Because when Stephen King writes, like, he did his trick when he's like just reloads both guns in the first book. I'm like, so I wrote that in as like the ability is called the reloading trick. So it's like, how can you dual wield like two revolvers? So like, I just took like quintessential gunslinging. So like, we have like the one big gun, which was the closest to the alchemist one, and I think they got medium armor instead of light armor because like, they're just like, this is the brute force gunslinger. And then we had like the dual wield one, and then I had the man with no name. So those are my three archetypes.
Nice.
Yeah,
I would get those, but unfortunately, you are not a member of Critical Role, so you're not going to do great.
Right.
Just for the record, I love Critical Role.
I don't. I hate it. Yeah. Do we disagree about one? I love what Critical Role is doing for exposure of RPGs. I hate that it costs a sporting event ticket to go watch them live, and they just don't seem to care about it. I'm like, oh, you just wanted it to be $300 for a VIP ticket. Like, weird that, like...
Yeah, I mean, like, at the same time, I'm like, yeah, I'm okay with these people getting paid. At the same time, I would never go and watch them live because I think the live games are their worst games.
You should get paid to do what you're good at.
Yeah.
No question. Artists should get paid. Writers should get paid. Producer, like, if you're good at the thing, get paid for it. Make your money. I will never harsh on you. But I feel like RPGs exist in that, like, shared space so much that it feels awkward to me to pay like a sporting event to go to it, they should at least have the nosebleeds where it's free. That's all I'm saying. That's
Why
all
don't
I'm
you just
saying.
watch it on YouTube?
Yeah, but you can't. It's behind a paywall. You
On
can't.
YouTube, no, it's not.
On Twitch it is. So, and I exist in Twitch. Remember, we go
Okay.
all the way back
Sorry.
to like that's how I make my bank. It's Twitch. Twitch is behind a paywall. I can't go look at their old episodes. I can download them, but like that takes my mobile data plan, and so I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. So anyway, I joined.
Anyway,
and,
yeah, no.
And yeah, that's where I am. So that's kind of like a rough bit of my history. So I have a kind of background in game design, animation, all that kind of stuff. So I know just enough to be dangerous, and not enough to actually get hired for either any of those skills.
Oh, you're a writer. Gotcha.
Yeah.
The bullshit.
Yeah, I'm a mediocre writer, I'm a mediocre artist, and I'm a mediocre animator, but I'm a pretty good producer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right on. So, so you land this like culmination of all the moments job, and but you started, and this is there you go. Thank you for hanging out with us, Sigil. Like you're the only one who cares about this so far. But you started out at like video game, essentially, right? Like, what was it about video game? Why was I'm going for video game design that started it? Was there some core, or was it like the trend? Like I don't know. What was the mentality?
Yeah, I think I kind of always been doing game design without really realizing it. You know, because I was thinking about this a little while ago, and I remember being like 6 or 7 years old and creating levels for Sonic, like just drawing them in my notepad in school.
I love this. I had what was called I did stick mazes. I used to draw essentially Sonic levels with like the spikes from the Sonic pits and stuff and the spirals.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to do that like in my own notebook. I would draw like essentially I called them stick mazes, but they were just Sonic levels with like spikes and the thing. And the whole point was you were supposed to like it was stick figures that you're supposed to like animate through it, and so you're supposed to draw your like stick figure getting through the platforms and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and like I didn't have a video game concept. You know, I'm 35 years old. I basically grew up alongside the Nintendo, right? So like I had no concept of like animation per se, but I just like I knew platforms and levels, and like wanting to like see the player, my friend in second grade get through that. You know, like
Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember doing that actually as well. Yeah, Jesus. Yeah, so I think like that was the earliest, maybe, but yeah, it was kind of that thing. And then when I was a teenager, I reverse engineered the fucking AD&D rules from Baldur's Gate.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Stuff.
I love that. Yeah.
I
did Zelda dungeons is what Sigil did. So Sigil was doing a little bit of the same thing we were doing, but like drew the Zelda dungeons. Yeah.
I don't know how it happened. It's kind of like once I got into it, I realized I was like relatively good at it, I think. And it's something I've always been interested in, and gaming and the experience of gaming and what that gives you depending on what you're playing. And
well, if I may, I feel like when it comes to I think that games are like essentially the next stage of art. They're just the logical progression of like all art has given us throughout human history. So you have like, cave paintings, which we found out like were also like they weren't like high art. Some of them were the literal equivalent of dick pics. Like
yeah, they were Sonic levels.
Yeah, they were Sonic levels, or like they found this cave where like it was one big inside joke to draw the next biggest picture higher up, and like you had archaeologists like just like puzzling. Well, why would they be drawing them in these configurations and going up this way? And then they finally found out. They got some anthropologists in there with the archaeologists, this was like psychologists, and they're like, oh, it's the most elaborate like peeing contest in the history of humankind. It's just who could draw the picture. We have not changed. Yeah, no, we haven't. And so I think like stories and telling stories and the art of telling stories has constantly evolved. From the cave drawing, Socrates actually said that the written word is destroying the what is it? It's destroying the art of the told story. Essentially, like Socrates, like the written word is destroying the art of telling a story.
Yeah.
Like we've had through all of human history, we just want to tell stories and jokes, like tons of jokes. We love jokes as a culture. Um, and so like we invented moving pictures, and we invented, the novel is a relatively new concept. I don't know if, yeah, don't you can at me with the Japanese scroll, but then it's not technically a novel. It's a long form kind of a fiction. But like even the novel, the printed press novel, is a very very new thing. And then like video games are just kind of, for me, video games and RPGs are like the newest form, this newest iteration of like trying to tell each other stories. Um, whereas,
Yeah. I think they are their own thing. And we studied a lot of this in college as well, because video games still haven't quite developed their language for talking about them. Like there's a language for talking about novels, there's a language
yes,
for talking about films.
yes,
Whereas a lot of the time, video game language, it adopts other languages.
Kojima
Like
is
if you
going.
ask someone, okay, what's gameplay? It's like, well, uh,
Yeah,
it's like a feedback loop, basically.
but is it like what is worthy gameplay versus not worthy gameplay, right?
Hmm.
What are the cardinal sins of game design when it comes to like playing a game versus telling a game? Board games have mechanics, right? Can I
Hmm.
give you a video game where you just run right the whole time? Is that a worthy experience? Right? Like
Hmm.
we're currently, I think Hideo Kojima, going back to PT, is going to be taught like Citizen Kane. Like as just this a video game director that just kind of got it and pushed
Hmm.
the boundaries of what's even going on. And I
Yeah.
think PT, to bring it back to PT was the spark of some of the most beautiful, ingenious storytelling we were about to get in the format, and then we're never gonna get it now. We
Yeah.
got we got
Still
Death
pretty bummed
Stranded
about that.
instead. We got Death Stranded instead, and I'm just like, I don't care. Yeah, cool,
Yeah.
balancing act with pertinent for COVID, because like it's all
Hmm.
about a plague, but like PT was um looping through the same set piece over and over and over again with subtle differences, and you're supposed to talk to humans on the internet to solve the next puzzle piece, and this whole like societal aspect of solving PT that
Yeah.
was
Exactly.
going on, where like you can't get the next level if you haven't talked to other humans. Playing a linear experience, that's mind blowing to me.
Yeah. It
Uh,
it was absolutely amazing. You have a bit of it, like I think you see some of it with kind of Dark Souls, and when a new Dark Souls comes out, you have this.
yes, yes,
Dark Souls is fucking amazing to me, simply because you have like, oh, there's this entire like 4 hour area that you might not find because we hit it in a really fucking obtuse way, and there's no way of fucking finding it. Or their thing with is it Dark Souls 1 or 3, where the actual fucking DLC is almost impossible to get to because you have to like
Bloodborne.
smash one of the crystal golems and then go back to that location later and talk to the person. And it's
Yeah,
so
yeah.
roundabout in how it actually
Bloodborne was
handles
the same
things.
thing. Like I was in like a new game plus loop on Bloodborne when the old Hunters DLC came out, and I'm like,
Mm,
I have to go back and fight Vicar Amalia, and like, oh, she's already dead. I can't do the like queue of events with like the DLC, because it's just like it put a new item in your inventory, and I'm
yeah,
like, I what do I do with the new item? And I was already advanced past that game state, and you have to like go on the internet and like talk to people, and like I I think RPGs have already kind of been doing that, the collaborative aspect of solving the puzzle. But like with a video game where it's like you've got this like kind of linear experience, but then this like collective like paradigm around it, I think that's video games are really cool in my opinion in terms of like what they're doing with art and storytelling. Um,
mm,
because for the most part, I feel like most of the art forms up until now have been like a monologue of the artist, with the exception of like
yeah,
improv, acting, and RPGs, and we'll get to video games. Most art has been like a monologue. I am Da Vinci, and I paint my scene. And you have to stand in front of it and you just absorb my scene that I said to you, essentially. Right? Like
Yeah.
I directed and wrote Citizen Kane. You're just going to absorb that. You have to like receive it. And we can get into death of the author, but I don't feel like it. Like, but when it gets right down to it, like, J.K. Rowling, like, fuck you, turf. But like with Harry Potter, no, too heavy. Sorry, but like,
I'm just so
mad.
yeah.
Yeah, like all kind of mixed up about it. But the point is, it's not hers anymore because she said she delivered the line to an audience, and the audience picked it up, and they got it, and they go, message received, but the art is ours now. With video games, what I think is interesting about them is like they go message received, but also, and then they give it back to you. I think video games get to like, they have a back and forth and a dialogue in real time that other art forms don't have. That's what I think is significant.
Yeah.
That's what I think is significant about video games as an artistic.
You have to go to RPGs to some extent, but I mean, like, one of the things
But tabletop I'll let you finish your point, but the tabletop RPGs is a shared experience in a central point around your group. What your awesome group does in your dialogue doesn't transcend the medium. Like what you do with the Forgotten Realms setting doesn't inform Forgotten Realms forever, with very few exceptions. But like whatever you do in your awesome group, you get that dialogue in the real time with each other, but it doesn't go on to like then give that feedback to the medium the way that video games do. That's what I'm saying. But yeah, continue your point, please.
No, I was just gonna say, like, last year I got into I got really heavily invested in the Mortal Kombat fighting competitive scene.
Oh yeah.
And like I can just imagine being the guys who created Mortal Kombat and then seeing someone like Sonic Fox or whoever go and use one of the characters they create and go, oh, I didn't know that could do that. Because it's just the game changes once it interacts with the people, and it's exactly that. It's not yours anymore. They go and change it. And I think one of the most fascinating games to me that I never ever want to play is EVE Online. Like, I love reading stories about EVE Online, but I never want to play it. It's just that ecosystem is something I can't comprehend. But it's basically like it's almost like the Singularity. Like, it is escaped control of the game designers, and it's just the people in the game are actually the game now, which is just absolutely
that's fantastic,
incredible.
Come on, that's awesome, right? Like this is the death of the author in real time. Like, we are the game now. We are the system.
Yeah, I mean, like and then you have the counterpoint to that, where you have something like The Last of Us 2 coming out. The Last of Us is one of my absolute favorite games.
I think it's
the
best game of the last generation. Like, objectively speaking, you've got a great story, great gameplay, so on and so forth. I have a lot of opinions I haven't crystallized on The Last of Us 2. Naughty Dog had some serious missteps in this game, and I guess their story was leaked. I don't mind that their story was leaked.
I haven't read anything on it. I'm like, nope,
blackout.
And
that's where I'm at. Is like, I'm in blackout mode. I will tell you my opinion on it later, because the Last of Us is one of the pinnacle achievements, I think, of like the video games as art. Personally,
yeah.
Like, it's
like I played The Last of Us before I had kids. I think I can't remember when it came out, but I replayed The Last of Us recently. I'm playing the start of The Last of Us while having a daughter. It's just fucking even more devastating. But I think one of the things The Last of Us does is, to some extent, it doesn't, like, you're not a hero. Joel's not a guy.
No,
and the violence in it is very visceral, and there's parts of it you're like, I feel icky doing this. This is just this is fucked up that I am doing this.
That's the first thing I tell to people trying to interpret The Last of Us. Joel is not a good guy.
And you know that from the end, but also they lead you to that point where you're like, absolutely, like, yeah, I would do exactly whatever fucking Joel did.
But like the dissonance between playing Joel and like understanding him and what is going on narratively is super significant. Like, he is not the good guy. It is summed up in a single scene when she's like, how did you know that was going to happen? And he's like, I've been on both sides of that ambush.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
he tells you he's the bad guy. He tells you he's the bad guy.
Yeah,
But what video games do with you is if you're playing the character, you sort of suture in with the character, you sort of like assume the character. This is what video games do as an art form that I don't think other games have like completely nailed. If I tell you the story I think film can do it a little bit, and I think books can do it a little bit, but nothing will ever get you to really vibe with the thing that is in the story as playing it. You know, like
yeah,
Anthony Burgess's Clockwork Orange comes to mind immediately, where like you're reading it, but like this is a bad character from the onset, even though there's a bunch of made up language and blah blah blah. Like you're like, I'm reading about a bad person being
yeah,
bad, you know, and then like oh,
yeah,
and then like thought control and brain manipulation and so on and so forth, and all those themes come in later. When you're playing Joel, you're like, I'm the protagonist. I'm killing the zombies, blah, blah, blah. But the violence is visceral. He tells you,
mm,
I've been on both sides of this ambush. Like, it, you're being told the whole time, I'm the bad guy, I'm the bad guy, I'm the bad guy. And it, like, pays off with he's the bad guy. But
yeah,
from a very,
exactly. Yeah, like he's so selfish in that
yes!
instance, but also like at the same time, I played through
I do it.
spoilers for The Last of
I
Us
do too.
one, by the way. I played through that bit at the end, and I didn't realize you could not shoot that doctor. I was like, I just walked in and shot him in the
Shot
head.
him
I was like,
immediately.
boom, get the
Yep. Yep.
fuck.
Boom.
Only for I saw a playthrough where you didn't have to kill that guy. I was like, oh, I feel even worse now. But like at
Well,
the same time, I was like, yeah, I would do that because at that stage, like, you love Ellie so much, and like you just want her to be safe. And then like the bit at the end where she knows he's lying. I was gonna say you're lying, but she knows he's lying.
right, you're going to say
They
you're
both
lying
just
because you're already in the Joel
yeah,
mode. Yeah.
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 But and she just kind of accepts it as well, but it, like that clearly
That
taints their
tension. The
relationship, and
tension there.
I'm interested to see what's going to happen in
That's
the
where I'm
next
at.
one as well.
Sajil, you said it doesn't need a sequel. I think it does because
Mm,
that tension point right there at the end, that's the story I want to explore. I know that
mm,
Joel's the bad guy. I want to see the game where Ellie knows he's the bad guy, but they have that relationship tension. I don't want them to like. I haven't read the spoilers. Don't tell me. I don't care. I saw that they got bombed and they leaked all their story and there's stuff going on. I don't care. Don't tell me. I'll ban you from all my stuff. Don't tell me. Um, I want to see the tension of her recognizing he's kind of the bad guy, but still having this kinship with him. That's the story I'm
mm,
super interested in. I don't care about
yeah,
anything
yeah.
else. I don't care if the zombies have taken over, civilization has started
Mm,
to fight back. I want to see that story because
yeah.
that's
Like
yeah. Go ahead.
I would have been happy. I would have been fine with there being no sequel as well. But I'm happy there is a sequel. But also at the same time, I have like this pit of dread at the thought of playing it. But not because like I know it's going to be good. I've seen all the reviews. It's like 10 out of 10, 5 out of 5, 9.5 out of 10, whatever. Like I know it's going to be good. But I like had this dread as to what an emotional toll it's going to have on me as well. You know?
I, I, I identify with Joel so much because I consider myself a morally good person if we have a measure of morality and goodliness. And I think that like to be a good person it supersedes to be a human because like we have basic human things that just happen. You know, we have like basic
Sure, yeah.
you know, and the whole point of like what makes you good is going this is bad. Like if I just like in the heat of the moment murder somebody, then I was bad. So maybe I need to engage my higher brain functions and not be that guy,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But like emotionally speaking, I know for a fact what it is like to be in parent mode of my kids and like
Mm,
the length I would go to. And like I would be it would be the Wolverine blackout rage mode. And at the end I would be like slap the handcuffs on me because I know I was
mm,
evil in that instance. Because like
yeah.
and this is bracketing again, with him Joel carrying his daughter and then at the end carrying Ellie, like it's so good. Tell me more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I was so glad when you got to play as Ellie in that, and I can't wait to see what an entire game as Ellie is going to be like. But also, I am just dreading it at the same time because it just looks brutal. Like, and they've done so much more in this to make the violence less glamorous as well. You know, like the thing you might have seen where they're talking about, but basically they've given pretty much every single character in the game a name, and when you kill them, their friends call out like their name, and like that's just like a really
That's brutal. Why do you hate me, game?
It's a very simple way of driving it home, and they didn't have to do anything else to the gameplay. It's just an audio cue where it just says, "Oh, Billy, no," and you're like, "Oh shit, that guy was a person. He's not just a bag of XP or whatever."
Yeah, he's not a loot pinata anymore. He's got an identity and a character and stuff like that. I
Yeah.
need to use the restroom really quick, and then we can wrap this up. But like Sajil, oh my gosh, PT, why are you mad that we'll never get PT the game that was supposed to be?
Oh God, Jesus. Well, I love Norman Reedus. I'm just a huge fan of Silent Hill. I think Silent Hill has been done a huge disservice as a property. Whatever you want to call it. You know, Team Silent was never supposed to succeed. Silent Hill 1 is good. Silent Hill 2 is fantastic. Silent Hill 3 is pretty good as well. I would say better than 1. With PT, it was a chance to see what someone like Hideo Kojima, who I kind of hit and miss on, someone with that kind of vision, that auteur, taking something like a property like Silent Hill and putting his drive and focus behind it. Also, a big fan of Norman Reedus, and I would have liked to be him as a main character, but I think that would have been really interesting. I started with Silent Hill 1. I remember playing Silent Hill 1. I was really, really sick at home one day. I think it was like, I don't know, 10 or 11 years old. God, I don't know when Silent Hill came out. And I remember trying to play Silent Hill, and I was playing it in bursts of it. The European version, I think, was censored, or was it the American version? Either way, we had the uncensored version. There was like a bit in a school with like the Ghost of the Kids or something, I think. I'm trying to remember now. But yeah, we had the uncensored version. I played that through bouts of like dizziness and illness as I was trying to get through it. And then I played Silent Hill 2. Myself and my sister played that. I played it and my sister watched me play it, my older sister. And we were both just terrified the whole time. Like there was a bit where right early on at the start, you're walking down, people might remember, where you're walking down a street and one of the things scuttles out from under the car. And she screamed, and her screaming made me scream. And then my mum burst into the room to see if we were okay. But yeah, Silent Hill 2 absolutely terrified me. I'm still terrified of fog. My granddad used to live on a military base because he was in the army. So every now and again when we go to visit, a air raid siren would go off, which always fucking terrified me. When I was in college, I wrote my thesis on Silent Hill 2, on James and his psychological trauma and all that, and him being again the bad guy. But yeah, with PT, I just find a unique artifact of this generation. The idea that a digital game could essentially be wiped from existence, except for the fact that people have it on their hard drives and some people backed it up on the internet. PT itself as a game, I think, would have been very interesting to see, particularly with Kojima doing horror, which, as far as I know, hasn't really done before. So I think that could have been a really interesting look with someone with such a strong vision and a strong hand in everything they do. Like Kojima seems like the ultimate like micromanager, but you know, in a good way.
Ultimate producer, like he produced, like if he were a tabletop RPG hand.
Yeah, like I mean, I would have liked to see. I think he would have instilled in whatever team was working on that. I think he would have instilled the same thought behind everything to do, because I find with a lot of his stuff, whether you like it or not, there's a logic to it, and there's been a thought process behind it, and he's gotten there for a reason, and there's a cohesive vision, which I feel that a lot of the Silent Hill games have since 3 have lacked. I think
4
Kojima
was
would have
I
brought
will
something really nice to
defend
it.
4. I will defend 4.
4 is very interesting as well.
I
But then you have, I can't remember the name of what it was, but there was like a 4-player co-op Diablo
Yeah,
style
I don't care about any of that
Silent
stuff.
Hill game.
No. The death of the Silent Hill was transitioning it from essentially the Japanese team to the American team. Even though I believe 4 was the American team, they got that initial team was like a team of fans that kind of got the meta of Silent Hill, and then from there it all like what was that?
Like 4 wasn't even supposed to be a Silent Hill game, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is like the Doki Doki Panic or whatever of like Mario 2 is not really Mario 2; it's a reskin because Americans weren't good enough to play the real Mario 2, and no,
The lost levels.
yeah. So we got like this weird like core other game, but what they did with what they had and the meta plot is really what I'm in for, is like the notion that Silent Hill can come to you.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Like that's like for me that's such a win. Like so I went for I was actually an English lit major, right? That's what I went to school for. So English lit, and initially in English education, but then at some point I got super jaded about the education system. I'm like, no, selfish. I'm in it for me. I want to be a better writer. I'm going to be the best writer I possibly can be. And so I thought that like learning about all the writers and learning the theory of writing would just make me the best writer possible. But there's this point where like I can see them get jaded with like the Silent Hill property, but keeping that core like meta plot, this notion that like Silent Hill can come to you, and that to me, because Silent Hill is a story of personal horror.
Yeah, absolutely.
The mistake the games make later on, what PT succeeds at, is personal horror, right? Norman Reedus' character or whatever is going through this linear loop of personal horror, this building narrative of like the person murdered in the radio, and like what the other Silent Hills get completely wrong basically from that point on is making it a horror game rather than a personal horror game. Like jump scares and like look at how this creepy grotesque thing is like what makes Pyramid
sexy nurses.
Yeah, sexy nurses. Oh yeah, sexy nurses. No, sexy nurses are only scary to James.
Exactly. Like, and like there's nurses in Silent Hill 3 and they're not sexy. Like, did people just miss that? Anyway.
Yeah. No, and this is why you're on the show right now. We're going to solve right now why Silent Hill is Silent Hill 2 specifically is the best game ever made. But it's the Citizen Kane of all video games, if you ask me. I don't know what your point is. Real quick before we dive into it, what's your can you even say a favorite video game of all time or the best video game of all time? Either or, because it's a different category. Favorite is different from best.
At this stage, Jesus, I don't know. Silent Hill 2 is definitely up there. Final Fantasy 7 was very formative for me. Baldur's Gate 2. Like, Divinity Original Sin 2, that came out a few years ago, is one of the best games I've ever played. It's such a perfect evolution of Baldur's Gate into what it could become. But like for best games ever, yeah, like Last of Us, Silent Hill 2, Final Fantasy 7 are like my games for very different reasons. Final Fantasy Remake, by the way, is fucking amazing. They did such a good job.
So good. It's so good. I'm a rabbit hole within the rabbit hole. I love Final Fantasy VII Remake. My great fear, one of my earliest YouTube videos is me playing Psychonauts, being worried that Final Fantasy VII Remake is going to be bad. Yeah, it's the most hipster thing you could possibly watch on the internet right now. I'm playing Psychonauts, and I'm like worried that Final Fantasy VII is going to be bad. The remake, because I was worried they weren't making it for me. That was like my big core thing is they were making it for a new generation of nerds. And by the way, like if you've watched the show, I'm cool with you jumping on new nerddom. At any point, if you jump on the bandwagon and you stay, you're just a fan now. I don't care about bandwagon fans. I was worried about them catering to the bandwagon though, which is a much different worry for me. Is they're going to like lose the heart of the story. They're going to throw in a bunch of like, I have played Lightning Returns, okay? Like they're going to just spectacle without any heart, make an RPG, blah blah blah. Like I was just worried about that. And Final Fantasy VII Remake, to its great detriment, it was made so unapologetically for me. I don't think they can recruit new players to the story.
Yeah.
Or like
I haven't finished it yet. I'm on like chapter 15. I have kids, so I only get to play sporadically.
Yeah,
but like,
yeah, same.
The there's so much more heart and feeling to it, and I think they do a good job of asking some tough questions. Like Tifa breaks my heart in it she's wrapped up in this, but I feel like she doesn't want to be, but she has to be. And Aerith is amazing. Like my best friend, one of my mates described her as having the best glow up moment, where she is just a sassy, amazing character now. Barrett's interesting. They made like the like tertiary Avalanche characters.
Jesse,
really interesting.
You didn't need to give me more Jesse. I was already upset about Jesse going to die. I played spoilers. She dies. And
I feel like they could have fixed Wedge though. Like,
he's still too much of a slap
guy who likes cats.
Yeah. Ooh, Soren showing up, dropping 5 gift subs on everybody. Thank you so much, Mad Lad. No,
nice.
like I'm not. I feel like they really explored the characters way more. Like they had like all the things I like about all those characters is already there to begin with, and they just explored them. Even why did I like Cloud? Because he's an asshole merc. He's even more of an asshole merc early. Like he goes through a full character arc. That's what makes Cloud really awesome. Is he's got this amazing character arc. Spoilers. You don't play him at one point in the video game, which is unheard of for an RPG hinged to a single main character.
Yeah.
At some point, you don't get to play him. I know 6 was an ensemble cast, so I don't count it. But if 4 had said Cecil, suddenly you don't get to play Cecil. Mind-blowing. That didn't
happen. They made Midgar feel huge as well. Like, Midgar feels monstrous. But, like, the thing with Cloud, there's a whole passage in the middle where Aerith is bringing you back to Sector 7. And that whole high five thing throughout the whole thing, that's just absolutely lovely. And then there's a bit later on where, like, again, spoilers for Final Fantasy, where, like, Tifa, it depends on what choices you made, I've learned, but Tifa's, like, really upset at one point, and she's, like, leaning on Cloud, and I was just, like, screaming at the TV. I was like, hug her. It's like, stop being such a fucking robot, Cloud. Like,
quit being an asshole. Quit being an No, it's so good. It's so good. I remember also like so like I cross-dressed a lot in high school, and stuff like that, and I remember like Final Fantasy VII. Even though it's like maybe it's as a trope, maybe it's a little bit more of the Monty Python thing, like cross-dressing for a gag or whatever. But I personally felt like really empowered when like my favorite character in an RPG threw on a dress to advance the plot. I'm just like, oh yeah. So the fact that I love like Doc Martens and sundresses, like, cool. Like it just was super. So like,
the scene with him and Andrea is just, it's so good. I love it.
Oh, it's so good.
So good.
Yeah, so good.
More dance-offs, please.
All of the dance-offs. Also, the hardest boss in Final Fantasy Remake is the squat boss.
Fucking Tonberry, man. I use so many Phoenix Downs.
Yeah. No, it's good. I can't wait. But like, I think video games like, I have like this like axiom of gaming. I want to always be playing RPGs. But it takes me and at least 2 other friends. And if I can't be doing that, then like if I can have like 2 friends, if it's me and a friend, then I can play like Age of Sigmar. And then if it's me by myself, then I play a video game. Like, right? Like, so video games for me are still a very solitary experience, even though like the trend in video games has been like multiplayer. I'm like, leave me alone. Let me have my like me on the couch with like a controller and like a bottle of bourbon, and just I'm gonna play my game. And
I'm the same. Like I'm okay, or I don't really engage with multiplayer games that much. I played a little bit when I was younger, but I'm not huge into it. I'd much rather play in something with a story, or even like not necessarily with a story, just a challenge or whatever it is. Like I like Dark Souls, Devil May Cry, Resident Evil, whatever.
Yeah,
But yeah, the multiplayer thing, I just no, leave me alone. I want to do.
yeah.
I think there's a move back to that singular experience, but again, it kind of comes back to right at the start where you're talking about the video game industry hasn't really expanded, and I think like basically we need to be paying more for games, and there's a huge resistance to that, and it goes across like tabletop RPGs as well. But like video games, realistically, for the amount of money that goes into them and the amount of years of work and the teams and everything like that, like realistically, video games should be like about $100 each. Like
Well,
most video games, there needs to be more tiers. Like your Last of Us, Final Fantasy VII, whatever, should be $100 each, and then you have those smaller experiences like Senua, what's it called? Shit,
no,
Senua
Senua.
Sacrifice.
Yeah. The Senua.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
that's like what, 4 to 6 hours maybe. Like that's
that's
your
a
like
$20. That's a $20 game.
yeah 30, 40, whatever. Like so, there needs to be more tiers, and I think that needs to be more acceptable.
I think the pushback in the video game industry has been like they don't want to sell you $100 video games, so they piecemeal it off to you in these weird cash grab schemes, and that makes it worse. When you've got the forced
Yeah.
multiplayer and the like loot packs and stuff like that.
Um. Yeah. Yeah. I
Hellblade
mean,
said,
like, and again, you can understand it because companies have to make money. Like, if you look at again Mortal Kombat 11, like Mortal Kombat came out
Cap.
60 quid, you get the full game. You pay another what 20 quid, and you get the first DLC pack. And now they've announced there's like a new story mode, which is like another 20 quid. So hey, look, we're up to 100 quid.
Yeah,
Now the game might be profitable, and people can keep their jobs.
yeah, yeah. I like. I'm not mad at you if you make me pay money for the thing I like. I'm mad at you if you're
Mm.
disingenuous about it. Does that make sense? Like if you don't
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
like um the greatest offender for me is still Assassin's Creed. Like Assassin's Creed is like you made me pay $60 for an expansion pack. Like go fuck yourself at that point. Like I'm
Mm.
like you didn't sell me a complete experience. You sold me an expansion pack, a reskin of a full retail game you promised. Like I don't want that. Or Mass Effect 3, which doesn't exist yet. I'm still waiting for Mass Effect 3 to come out. But if they had, they would have forced multiplayer into my single player experience that I played for 100 hours single player. Why are you wasting resources on putting a multiplayer into that game?
I
Why?
fucking love the multiplayer Mass
I
Effect
know
3.
you do,
It was
but
so good.
everyone loves the multiplayer, but I didn't need it. I wanted another, I don't know, 20 hours of story. I wanted my
Yeah,
like,
it's
yeah,
that dissonance, right? Like, so again, Last of Us had multiplayer, but if you're trying to tell a story in Last of Us about how violence is bad, don't put in a multiplayer game where you're killing people.
hmm for
Where
novelty
I
and
don't,
like level ups. Like,
yeah, and I don't think there's a multiplayer in Last of Us 2, as far as I'm aware.
let's hope not.
Like it was that big push all at one time. We're like, oh shit, you have to have a multiplayer game. Everyone's playing multiplayer, and then I think EA announced that Jedi Fallen Order or whatever it is, the new single player Star Wars game, did really really well for them. So they might put more money into that. Um,
I guess what I'm not gonna like harp on the video game industry too much. I just missed single player experiences, and I feel like that.
Uncharted had multiplayer, not Last of Us. Thank you, Sajil.
Yeah, Uncharted. By the way, I recently, hey, I used to be a variety streamer. Hey, before I had a podcast for Age of Sigmar. Um, uh, I did my Uncharted marathon. I played through all of them except for one because one is just garbage. It's like a weird kind of wannabe Grand Theft Auto adventure game. It doesn't quite work. But 2, 3, and then basically 4, and then the DLC especially, the standalone DLC. All of them excellent games, like really solid. 2 is the best by far because it has the most like I feel like the most honored like classical game design tenets, with like platforming being the
Sure.
mechanic and the fact that it has like adventure and combat being kind of like a secondary or tertiary, well implemented and good, but not the focus. And the platforming segments are they knew that they were a platformer, right? Like there's a whole point in that game where in Uncharted 2 specifically where I'm just like, I don't want a scripted vehicle scene. I'm so averse. I hate them so much. They're lazy design. Don't do it. Give me a cutscene instead of a scripted vehicle scene. Don't lie to me about gameplay. I don't like. If you want me to just watch a cutscene, I will. I'm still on board with cutscenes. I remember when cutscenes sold me a Final Fantasy game, right? Like the summoning cutscenes. I remember that. I'm about the cutscenes. I'm okay with it. And they have this moment in Uncharted 2 where you think Nathan Drake's about to drive the truck, and he's platforming on top of the trucks that are exploding. It's amazing. Like, it's so good. Like, it's a pure troll of the whole scripted vehicle scene, but then they actually have scripted vehicle scenes in the later games, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
you've forgotten the face of your father. But they're
Yeah,
still
yeah.
like,
But then sometimes like I see a scripted like a cutscene. I'm like, oh, this could have been a quick time event.
I could have played
You know?
this. Yeah, I could have played this. Yeah. Don't tell me that.
Worst thing about Final Fantasy Remake is 95% of the doors you just press triangle and 5% you have to hold triangle. That is my biggest fucking problem with Final Fantasy Remake.
Or the whole barrel scene in the remake. I'm like, I thought I was gonna do the things with the barrels, and I'm like, oh no, it's just spooky ghosts. All right, like I thought I had a puzzle coming up. No puzzles. Like you don't have to think at all right now. Just climb the weird ladder controls out of nowhere.
Man, I'm okay with not thinking right now. I just want to smash stuff with a big sword. Like,
Isn't it good though? The combat, like I thought I wasn't gonna be on board with it because I wanted my turn-based combat where I can like
yeah,
luxuriate and I can drink a beer while I like hold the controller, you know. And they're like, oh no, you can still hold the beer and the controller, but then you get to look at Cloud do flippy stuff. That's awesome. I'm like, oh, all right, yeah.
it's so fucking good, and they made every character feel different. Like, I just love being Tifa, just wailing on people over and
Oh,
over.
her combo system is so great. Like it's such a robust, interesting mechanic. I'm like, why am I sadly being Cloud right now, where I just smash square over and over and over again when I can be doing
Yeah,
these like cool, intricate combos and leveling up in
yeah,
mid.
she's awesome.
Yeah, she's amazing. Um, but I want to rabbit holes within rabbit holes. We're gonna talk about we're gonna finish on like Silent Hill and the horror tropes, and then I'm gonna let you go, man, because I've kept you already an hour.
Man, I'll come back. I'll come back and talk about more shit. Like,
But but like the story of personal horror. I heard you talk about like horror concepts coming into your like own personal tabletop a little bit. Um,
sure, yeah.
yeah, like I guess to be continued, man. I've already kept you an hour past schedule. I'm not gonna keep you longer.
That's all
So
good, man.
what was that?
It's all good. It's all good. I'm not used to sleeping. I have a 1-year-old. It's all.
1 year old? Is this your first?
No. I have my little boy. Well, he's 4 years old now. He's amazing. He just goes straight down and he sings and he loves bedtime. We read Ghostbusters tonight. My little girl is the lockdown has had a big impact on her because she's really clingy to all of to myself and my wife now. Because she should have been kind of going out and staying with her grandparents and all that kind of stuff, whereas now she has us all the time. So when we try and put her down in her bed herself, she like loses her mind. So we're just this week we're trying to break her out of that. So she's fighting it. So we've had a couple of late nights, but
No,
we're getting there.
no, my 3 year old she's the sneak into bed kid. Like so our son he's a 7 year old and like he's like pretty self reliant at this point, but like
Yeah, sure.
he co-slept. I know I'm a terrible parent. But I
No,
was
you do whatever you can to get by. You fuck everyone else. You do whatever you need to do.
we
Like,
didn't like get drunk and like lay on top of our kid and like suffocate it. No, like
yeah.
we had like pillows and a structure and stuff. But like so he co-slept early, but then he got weaned off of that, and then he was just fine. And with Lily, our daughter, our 3 year old, no co-sleeping whatsoever. You're in your special crib structure. You go to sleep, and we listen to all the like new parenting stuff. She does not stay in her own bed. The minute she could get out of her bed, she climbed into ours. And so like we had to do that thing where we're like we constantly like lowered, so you get the crib lower so she can't climb out. But at one point you realize that she's willing to climb out and just fall further. And so like well now like we can't like do that to her anymore, so we have to like lower the barricades and hope she just sleeps. And so she just, since she's been able to physically climb a crib structure, she's been able to get into our bed, which has been 2 years, going on 3 now. And so she just like climbs into bed with us, and like there's nothing is sacred. She like sleeps on a diagonal, the fist in my neck, the foot in Molly's back, like, and it's like you can't, because you're a real parent with real work and real stuff going on. Like by the time it's like 4 a.m. when she comes into bed, I got to be up for work in an hour. I'm like, I'm not gonna put her back in her bed.
Yeah, you pick your battles. You do whatever you can to get past.
Yeah.
Like that's it. Like this week, you know, kind of the last few weeks, 8 weeks maybe of lockdown, sleep schedule has been terrible. So this week we've made a concerted effort to try and get my little girl Zoe back into any kind of routine. It's been 3 days, 4 days. Okay, actually it's been 5 days. It's already getting better. So it's just a matter of time.
Hey Joanna, welcome back. Yeah, it's Boomercast now. Thank you, Zoom.
Boomercast, excuse me. I am Gen Y? I don't know what Gen I am.
No, we're I think we're probably Xenials, which is the in between of being a millennial and stuff. But so Joanna is a Zoomie. She's a Gen Z, and she hasn't been in chat for a long time, even though she's a moderator. So she just busted our chops. No, I'm just, again, I'm gonna let you go. You got a pair of youngins. Thank you so much for coming on tonight. This was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Come back on later. We won't even talk about Soulbound at all. We'll just talk about like everything
else.
God. So anything you want to put on blast? Any last minute soapboxes that you got to get on top of here?
No, not hugely. I mean, like, people might know Soulbound. You can pre-order from our website. We have Free Adventure by Elaine out now, Crash and Burn, which is like genuinely a fantastic adventure. I was super excited reading it. We should have our GM screen and more adventures out next week, hopefully. Fingers crossed. And then after that, we're looking at July for the starter set, and then we have tons of more stuff coming down the line. So, yeah, plenty in the pipe. Lots more Soulbound to come.
Right on. And you just pumping on the. This is personally, thank you so much. On one end of the spectrum, you have a person who's probably done the least amount of anything ever to have a credit in an RPG book, which is me.
You say that, but it's all super fucking helpful.
No, I mean, like, I played a few adventures. I wasn't even, like, I've always been the GM. I didn't even GM the stuff I played tested. I'm just like, I'm playing character. I'm going to be disruptive. Because that's the thing, I took that on. I'm like, every RPG playtest group needs somebody being disruptive to the system. I'm like, I will do that for you guys. I will do that for all of y'all. And then on the flip side, like you've got Elaine here in chat, and you who just like grinded in TS, who just like did the most to make this amazing RPG. I love Soulbound so much. I look forward to the second edition. Even though
D100. It's gonna be D100.
No, don't ruin it. I'll make fun of.
I'm not a huge fan of D100 systems simply because like I know the percentage. I'm like, I need a little bit of abstraction. I need like a D20. That's fine. That's a little bit of abstraction.
I need the swing. I need the swinginess, right? Like I don't want pure consistency. Thank you so much, Elaine, for that follow there. Like I need that like that variance, that like weirdness, and like D percentiles are just like it works or it doesn't. It works or it doesn't. You know.
Sure. Yeah.
No, I need the craziness. All right, man. Thank you so much for joining me tonight, chat gang.
Thank you.
You are the show within the show. You're the reason we do this. Thank you so much. This is technically season 2 of RantCast. This is episode 1 of season 2. I did 52 episodes before. This is 53.
Holy shit.
I know. It's crazy.
Oh, 53, prime number, probably.
Maybe, yeah, it works. 53 is going to be like, just read the every 53rd page in your Soulbound book. There's like, it's a Fibonacci sequence of like crazy events. Like we figured it out.
53rd page is probably like the Caradron, I want to say.
Caradron are important. There you go.
I gotta check. Hang on. I gotta check. I have the new updated PDF that loads super fucking quick. So, yeah. I'm just keeping that for myself. I'm never going to release it. Oh, Trade Pioneer. Close.
Yes! Yes! That's so good, though. Like,
Oh, bitch.
Shout
out to Rune for the awesome art.
I just the art is fantastic in Soulbound. What it does for Age of Sigmar is great, and what I think it does for the RPG community is excellent. This is the game that you can approach from a plethora of angles. They tell you about your session 0. You've got the granular make your own character. We have a Skaven and an ogre in my game right now. Come on, like, because you gave us species rules to do that with. But then you can just like be like, I'm gonna be a witch elf. Boom.
Yep.
Out the gates. It's fantastic. It's awesome. I wonder what the 53rd page is for D&D Monster Manual. Who knows? I don't know. But
it's probably a fucking dragon.
Probably. There's just dragons all the pages.
ABC, there's not a lot. There's Aboleth, Bugbear, Cat, and then dragons.
Dragons. So
demons. Shit.
Speaking of, there's a disturbing lack of dragons. I hope that the next bestiary. I'm looking at you, Elaine. Some dragons, maybe.
What is a magma droth if not a dragon without wings?
Fair enough. All right. Good night, everybody.
All right. Cheers, folks.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We'll talk to you later.
Cheers, folks. Bye.